whatever it gives to security is what it gives back to you. Every day is for the thief, or one day is for the owner. That talks about that the thief is 99 times smarter than the owner. That's what it means. One, you must need to think like one.
Welcome on board. Your instructor is ready for you. We're good to go. So Timmy, over to you.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's good to see everyone once again. So yesterday was more about fundamentals. So today we just continue from our network defense essentials, which is the major things you need to know regarding our network defense essentials. Okay, so nobody would like to speak again. All right, so yesterday was majorly about IT fundamentals. We learned about the OSI layers. You learned about TCP, different protocols under the OSI layers. We learned about numbers conversion. And I think the reason why I brought about the numbers conversion is because some of you will go into malware analysis. You need to understand how the processor works with all this binary, and you have it in your head. Also, all these IP addresses, right? They're also binaries. So some of you will say learn subnetting, which you need to understand binary numbers conversion derived from binary to octadecimal to hexadecimal. Okay, so yesterday we talked about network security controls. Now, some of us will understand the basis of networking, why networking is needed. We need to communicate from different countries and also with different devices. And that was what brought about the OSI layers and the DoD model. So no matter the device or proprietary you are using, you can communicate with any device. Now, the way I'm communicating with all of you, we are using all different devices. But due that there's a protocol, which is OSI, that allows the transaction of data from one point to the other, right? So we can communicate with any devices. So, and I've told you that the more the ease of these networks, the more the ease of communication, the more security it needs, right? The more the ease of communication, the more development, the more IT development, the more software development, the more there's a lot of innovations, the more security it needs. And that's the beauty about cybersecurity, right? The job cannot be replaced. So the more there's innovation, the more there's ease of life, the more security it needs. The more there's flexibility, the more security it needs. And the beauty about it is that there's job stability. AI cannot replace cybersecurity. It can only what? Make cybersecurity easy, right? They work hand in hand. Right. It can only support, so it can only complement cybersecurity, but AI cannot, because AI itself needs security actually, right? And that's what we have compliances, we just talk about. For AI now, we have the 14,000 compliance for AI and machine learning models. We call them LLM, they're large language models. And there's the beauty about machine learning. Also, why I need security is because one of the issues of AI is clean data, right? It's clean data. So it's one of the major issues we have. And I see that most of these companies, especially Meta, they're spending a lot regarding what? Clean data. So because you have to train that model with clean data. If you don't train it with the right data, it will have a lot of issues, right? So that's one of the beauty of cybersecurity. There is job stability. Okay, so we have different network security controls, which I'll be breaking down today. We have the administrative control, we have the physical control, and we have the technical control. Let me come again. These network security controls are in three different models. We have the administrative controls, we have the physical controls, and we have the technical controls. So let me start with the administrative controls. Now we need to understand regulatory framework compliance. Now every industry, Bright Okoli, Okoye, let me highlight your mic. Bright Okoye, please you can mute your mic and go ahead if you have a question. Try and move ahead.
Okay. Good afternoon, Timmy, and good afternoon, everyone. Please, I don't know if you can hear me. I've been having network challenge all this while. Please, can you hear me?
Yes, I can now. Please go ahead.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I think it's quite late. And I wanted to speak when you're asking for input regarding yesterday's class,
Please
right? But quickly, I have a question currently now. And it's regarding this network. I want to have a clear understanding about the word network, right? Because normally, once I hear the word network, what comes to my mind is my service provider, like MTN, Airtel, like what comes to my mind. So I don't know. Please, is there a way you could just explain the word network so I will have a clear understanding and perspective about it? Please.
Exactly. Just the way we humans also network and have a conversation, right? System are social beings, right? Every device we are seeing there, and that's what makes it a network device because they can share their resources and communicate. So yesterday we talked about electronic devices and network devices, and I think the difference between an electronic devices and a network devices. And what makes a network device is the ability to share its resources. So networking means that was one or two or three devices can communicate and they can share their resources, they can share their storage, they can share information. That one networking means. When you see a large network, the way we are communicating now, right, our devices can talk to each other. And how do they talk? They use data. And we have rules, protocol, and services that help with this communication so that it doesn't mean work. And that's why I give you the assignments regarding ports and services. Right? So a network is a combination of different devices for the purpose of sharing their resources and also communicating. That's why we have different types of network. We have the local area network, in which that is within a building, and they can communicate within themselves within a building. They need to go outside the local area network. Then they don't talk about metropolitan area network or wide area network. And wide area network is a combination of different lands so they can communicate. I showed the cable map yesterday that all of us actually communicated. We are actually connected. And I think I showed this yesterday. Yeah, I showed this yesterday. So you can see this is a network. All this is wide. This is the world internet network, right? So all of us actually communicated. So data is being moved from one point to the other. So that's what a network is. So that means different devices, just the way we humans also communicate. These machines also communicate, and that's why they are social devices. That means also network devices. They can communicate from one point, from one devices to another device. Bright, does that make sense?
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you so
All
much.
right. All right, Emmanuel, please go ahead. Okay, I'm coming. Okay, Emmanuel, go ahead.
Yeah, good afternoon, Mr. Timilane.
Good
Can you hear
afternoon,
me?
Emmanuel. Yes.
Okay, please. I want to plead for something. I did not download the material you sent yesterday, so I don't know if it's possible you send it on the group now so I can quickly download so I can follow along.
All right. The right people that will do that, I'm sure that they are hearing you so that you have that information if possible.
All right, thank you.
So the people in charge of it are taking notes already.
All right, thank you.
All right. Thank you, Emmanuel. Okay, so compliance is very important for every organization. And some of us, this is the career path we're going to governance, risk, and compliance. And compliance is very, very important. Almost every organization must follow a particular compliance, right? It makes life easy. It makes life easy. So there's a methodology of the way you do things, right? Now, it's often required for organizations to comply with some regulatory security regulation. And I've told you that security and law are 5 and 6, right? Either in terms of policy, compliance, but they go with laws, right? Now, complying with regulatory frameworks is a collaborative effort between government and private bodies to encourage voluntary and mandatory improvements to cybersecurity because it's a wide space and sometimes people make a lot of mistakes. Like I said, people make a lot of mistakes. And that's why compliance is very important. That means the way you do things, the policies you follow to do things, and a lot of things like that. Now, ICE Security Regulatory Framework contains a set of guidelines and best practices. That means what to follow, right? The best way to do something. So that is regulatory framework compliance. Um, And we have different tree. We have the procedures, practices, and guidelines. We have the standards, we have the policy, and we have the regulatory frameworks. So the procedure, practices, and guidelines Okay, let me take it from here. Now, regulatory framework. Under a framework, an organization must document its policies. Now, let me even tell the difference between these two. There's a difference between law, there's a difference between standard, and there's a difference between policies. Now, of course, law is made by the government, right? So it's the government that makes laws. Now, standards are made by a consensus of different bodies. Example, IEE, we have the ISO standard. Those are different standards. And we have policies. Policies are majorly by executive of a company. So a policy of an organization can be different from another organization. Now, my own policy was that maybe you must wear tie. Another person's policy was that they should not wear tie. Those are different policies. Now, policies are made by what? High-level executive of a company. Standards are made by consensus, right? Example, IEE standard, and so on and so forth. Then laws are made by government. Now, policies, like I said, they are high-level statements dealing with admin network security of an organization. So they are leveraged by senior management. Now, there's a main thing about policies. They are made by the senior management. So those are the things I might have to say about. So this is a major thing that are made by top executives. Okay. So they generally apply the security roles and responsibility, the scope of information to be secured, description of required control for securing information, and reference to standard and guidelines that support the policies. Then we have the standards, like I said. Standard also comprises of low-level mandatory controls or control related to the implementation of a specific technology. Example, we have the data encryption standard, we have the AES, we have the RSA algorithm, and we have the practices, procedures, and guidelines. Right? They are standard operating procedures. That means they are stepwise instructions, right? They are also for implementing the controls that are defined by multiple policies, standard, and guidelines. So guidelines also comprises of recommendations. And sometimes when I'm talking about some of these policies, is what I'm talking about, right? They comprise of recommendation and also non-mandatory control, as well as general statements and administrative instruction or best practices. But they are stepwise instruction of how to implement a particular control. Now, for example, let's give a simple example of this. A standard may state that a password should be 8 characters or more, while a supporting guideline may state that it's also best practice to follow password expiration and data encryption guidelines. Now, why the organization in compliance? Why is even compliance very, very important? Why don't everybody just do whatever they like and whatever they want? Now, it improves security. That's one of the major things. That means IT security regulations and standards improve the overall security of an organization by meeting what regulatory requirements. Two, it minimizes losses. That means there's documentation for everything. Now, some of these things that are not mentioned here is that it helps with incident response. That means there's a step-by-step process. That means if this malware comes in, if we have this particular attack, how do we solve them, right? There's a compliance, there's a documentation for that already. There are policies, example, password policies, right? How do we make complex policies? That means some of you are some of that work in the industry sometimes very annoying when they tell that every 30 days, you have to always change your password. Yes, why is it? Because it's very important. And I tell you that most of the time, people are tech savvy, but they are not security savvy. And sometimes they underrate a lot of things. And I tell you that some of these attacks are as simple as a simple social engineering. But policies can help you curb a lot of things, even though it can look very, very stressful sometimes. But those policies make you very conscious, even as an organization. That means you know that there's a procedure to follow for everything you're meant to do. Even helps with your controls. That means to be sure that your controls are effective. Now, some of the time you can implement control, but you don't implement control the right way. Let me give you a simple example of this. Let's say I'm going to from maybe Abuja to Kaduna. Now, do you know that the more number of policemen I see, the slower my journey? The more checkpoint I see, the slower my journey. So let's say the kind of services I offer has to do with speed and also quality of service. The more security I put there, the slower the network. the slower the bandwidth. That means that what security is dynamic. So I can't decide that, okay, I don't want to close everywhere. It should affect also the flexibility. And that's why sometimes we have issues a lot between software developers and security people, because software developers majorly are more about functionality and usability. Meanwhile, we know at the security department that the more functionality and flexibility, the more there is a probability of a flaw, or the more there is more vulnerabilities. So majorly end users are like your baby. They're like your baby. They don't even care. They do a lot of things. Irrespective, they don't even understand. So some of this time, policy curbs these things and bring a balance to your controls. Then also it maintains trust. So most of the time, most of you when you see that this company is PCI DSS or ISO 27001 compliant, you tend to trust that company majorly. So believe that they are following a particular standard and they are trustworthy. So customers trust the organization in belief that their information is safe. Example, GDPR. Some of it deal with privacy. And that's one of the issues we have in the industry now. I say that most of these new compliance, example, SOC 2, we will not be going deep into that, right? So that it will not be too complex for us. But I'll talk some of this policy. Example, I'll use Nigerian Data Protection Act now, or protection law, or protection regulation, NDPR. Now it talks about what regulation of your data and also the privacy of your data. And that's why most of the time you see companies send you mail that please, we have this information since like 5 years ago. Do you want us to retain this information or dispose it? I'm sure most of you have seen mails like that recently. Yeah, so that's what you can actually have the right to your information. That means your information are safe, the data are safe, and there's privacy. There's privacy. Now, also identifying which regulatory framework to comply. Now, because there are different kind of regulatory compliance, now this determine about the kind of business on the industry you have or what you are trying to achieve, the mission and the goal of your business will determine the kind of compliance you follow. You don't need to follow all compliance, right? You can't follow compliance. But sometimes, depending on your business, the scope of your business, that means the mission and the vision of your business, and the kind of industry you are in, will determine the kind of compliance you will follow. So an organization needs to assess itself to determine which regulatory framework applies to its best. Because some of this time, getting these certifications are also expensive. Most of you just see someone that has PCI DSS, there's a lot of rules to it. So major is that why can't you do everything? No, it doesn't work like that. Sometimes there might be conflict of controls, but most of them have their strengths, right? Most of these compliance have their strength. But now you have to look for what is best for your organization. Even though most of them you can have more than one, of course, compliance you are following, but they will actually complement each other. Okay, Bright, please go ahead.
Okay. Thank you so much for so far for the lecture. Right. You made mention of policy when serving as a gap or is a breaching gap between security and speed. My first question is there a real life scenario maybe in Nigeria we can use to see how policy help to strike a balance between speed and security? That's number one. Number two question is there scenario or are there systems whereby we can say, okay, in this particular system, let's trade off and you're trying to decide between speed and security and say, okay, given this particular system, you know what, let's trade off speed and go for security, or given this particular system, let's trade off security and give attention to speed. So are there particular system or infrastructure whereby this thing could play out?
Okay, let me come again. I was talking about flexibility, usability, and security. So let me draw the triangle here. There's a triangle in which that is looking for a balance. So this security. Sorry, please don't mind my handwriting. Some people complained about this. But hopefully, when next we will find a way to make it more better. So this functionality, functionality, and this usability. Now, there's a tough balance between these three: functionality, security, and usability. Now, you know that the more flexible an application can be, the more security it will need, the more it will degrade the security. And sometimes if you are so strict with your security, the more users will complain about the usability. So there's a tracking balance between usability, functionality, and security to find a balance within them. Now, let me give an example of what I'm even talking about speed. Example, most of you have seen estates where they provide internet access. Now, most of this time, we notice that most of these ISPs sell to you speed. They only tell you that this our ISP, right, can give you about 45 MB per second. Well, have you heard them sell security to you that no, is secured? No, but most of them sell what? They sell the speed to you. Because one, if they need to give out to you security, that means the way there is a guard man at the gate, there's also should be a SOC operation center at the gate to monitor every traffic. But because they are so smart and they know that this can cause any lawsuit, they sell only speed to you. So example, let me also answer another question that we're talking about policy in a real world scenario. Example, for Nigeria data protection regulation, it deals with what? The privacy of people's information. That's your PII. How do they keep that information? Is it being exposed? Does another person have access to it? Do they monitor you with it? Do you know that there are some applications that monitors you offline, that they actually spyware? And most of them do it for marketing purposes. Like most of you click on accept all cookies. Now, what are cookies meant to do? They're meant to be stored in your browser so that they can track your whatever you're doing on that particular website and make it easy for you. There are some of you when you are filling a form and there's a mistake or you mistakenly refresh your browser, you see that once you try and type on that same form, it's really giving you an auto-filling. But also, these people go ahead to breach your privacy. It's a very thin line. That means that most of you have experienced a situation that you just told your friend that I like this bag, and you go on Instagram or Meta, you are seeing that bag, you got that what happened? I just spoke about this thing once. Some of this time, it's not that they really want to know about you. Of course, they want your digital footprint, and sometimes it's about marketing. The same thing with Temu. And most of you have experienced that before. So how do we curb these excesses? Right? That's where policy comes in. And policy also can help with balance with security, functionality, and usability. Because most of the developers don't even care about security at the end of the day. They only care about what the functionality of that software. In fact, it was a major issue before because before it was about development, operation, and security. That means after developer develop, they push it into operation or into development. Then they say that okay, security, please in the next 2 weeks we want to launch this application. Can you do between 2 weeks? And like, where do you start this project? How am I going to test this application in 2 weeks? Then you see the CEO telling you that no, we've called Wiki, the Minister of FCT, to come for the launch, so we can't extend it. And that is that most of these financial applications is that most of them do an update, and there's a problem. They move to production, and I can see that I can't access my bank app. They just did upgrade. What is the problem? And that's what brought about a new department also called DevSecOps. Right? That means as you are developing, you are securing before you even move into production at all. So that's what compliance can do for you. Bright, does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
All right.
Yes, it does. Thank you so much. Thank you.
All right. So, for example, I will have this table which I still talk about that talks about different regulatory frameworks for different organizations and what they do. Example, Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act talks about what? Personal health information, PHI. That means any company or office that deals with healthcare data, including but not limited to doctors' offices, insurance companies, business associates, or employers. So every healthcare that has to do with people's data has to follow HIPAA. And that's why you see in foreign countries, your health records are almost everywhere. You don't need to be carrying your health records. You move from one state to another. Let's say you move from California to maybe Los Angeles. You don't need to be carrying your record. It's in their database. And some of these times, this information are very, very essential. Let me give you an example. Let's say we are talking about cyber war now. Do you know that, let's say Russia has access to every military data, healthcare data relating to US? Do you know that that's a big flaw? That means that was, I know who the handler is, I know every health information of that military personnel. What I don't need to look for is what are they addicted to, right? What can they do, or what can they do regarding to health? Which is very, very important. Now, sometimes it deals with very high potential people. They don't want their health information to be leaked out. And trust me, health is one of the major factors that moves technology and one of the darkest areas in the world, which I'm not going into details. Due to this, I cannot be able to expose a lot of things. So health information are very, very important. Go to pharmaceutical, doctors, a lot of things regarding health. So there's a lot of health information that should not be exposed. Imagine Trump's health information being exposed. So that's what HIPAA is talking about. Since there are health data, how do we secure them? What are the compliance they need to follow to keep that information safe? Some people can be allergic to some things. Even soldiers can be allergic to some things. And now we are talking about bio defense or bio war. That's a simple way to even fight all these wars. So if I know what a lot of people, based on culture, based on what they eat, what they're allergic to, it's very easy to create mutations of viruses. And a lot of people will die. And I know that some of you have read these little things regarding coronavirus, regarding Bill Gates involved, and a lot of things. Just like we are having GMOs now. All right, we have the Sarbanes-Oxley Act. This talks about U.S. Public Company Boards, Management and Public Accounting Act. We also have the FISMA that talks about Federal Information Security Management Act. So it thought that all federal agencies must develop a method of protecting information system. In fact, this is very important. FISMA, most federal governments, especially CIA, FBI, they follow up FISMA. Well, private company can also follow that compliance to have that same structure. They also have the Graham-Leach-Billy Act. This talks about financial products, and we also have the PCI DSS that talks about company and the credit card information. In Nigeria, you can't be a financial service provider without doing PCI DSS. That talks about payment card, right? We have Visa, any payment card in Nigeria, even banks will follow what PCI DSS. So that's a compliance. So let's go deeper into some of this compliance. Now, deciding on how to comply with to regulatory framework. When an organization falls within the scope of certain regulatory framework, it needs to correctly interpret regulatory requirements and regulatory frameworks to be compliant with. Based on those regulatory requirements, an organization needs to establish policy based on the regulatory requirement. Now, you will develop policies, procedure, and security controls to manage and maintain that compliance. Based on the regulatory requirement, you now need, that's why I say that before you even start any organization or whatever, you need to understand which compliance you are following. Then you build policies, procedures, and even controls to that compliance. Now let's look at PCI DSS. So there are some of these regulatory requirements. Example, PCI DSS 1.1.1. It says that a formal process for approving and testing on network connections and changes to the firewall and router configuration. That means there should be a formal process. That means that what? If there's a router, there should be a documentation of how to configure that router. There's a process already, that documentation. So that means that there are formal processes of approving. That means if you want to procure a new router, which product are we using? It's very, very important. Let me give you a simple scenario. African Union, was it 2018 or 2019? China came to them and they said that, well, Africans, anything that has to do with cheap things, we like it a lot. So China came to them that, why don't you help you develop, help you with the router, with the building, we do the router, we do the telecommunication and all those stuff in a cheap price. And they agreed. Then I think fast forward to 2020 or 2021, there was an issue. Then they felt that we were saying some things and how was this information being linked out? Then they started trying to find out what happened. They noticed that even to the table in that building, right, there was a mic or something there, which was giving a feedback to the China government. Let's not talk about the backdoor on the router or switches. Even to the table, I'm talking about the table itself, where they have the mic. There was a backdoor there. There was a feedback to the Chinese government. So these are what policies can do for you, right? There are documentations. Nobody should just come tomorrow and just configure anything. There are documentation and process to follow. Also, look at 1.2.1. What is the regulatory requirement? It's talking about restrict inbound and outbound traffic to which is necessary for the cardholder environment and specifically deny all other traffic. That means you must know every traffic going to that card data. That means if that card data is being exposed, you know how much a lot of people will lose. And those card data are very important, even to the card controller, to the processor. Because any financial institution that has to hold card data, they must do this PCI DSS. That means that they are so sure that you are following that procedure. It's just like NAFDAC also for drugs. What are the drugs that people need to use? Which ones are very, very bad? That's the same way this regulatory compliance follow. Okay. Then we have the 5.1, which talks about deploying antivirus software on no system commonly affected by malicious software. So it's a major requirement under PCI DSS. You must deploy antivirus software, IDS, IPS, and so on. So that talks about PCI DSS. So we are still under PCI DSS. So what are the high level overview? What is the purpose of PCI DSS? I mean, card regulatory standard. You are meant to build and maintain a secure network for those card data you are holding. You are building and maintaining a secure network. You are maintaining a vulnerability management program. That means that you are mitigating those vulnerabilities as much as possible. One, you are regulating, monitoring, and testing your network. In case there are any flaws, you are protecting card holder data. That means people that owns those cards. Also, you implement strong access control measures and maintain an information security policy. Now, let me even tell you how this is very, very important. I remember in 2017 or so, during recession, there was a time that our card payment, I think MasterCard, they could do international transaction. And then there were a lot of issues in the banking system in which that someone can just pick your card up and you can be your house and just see an alert. By the time you get to the bank will tell you that someone used your card to buy maybe a ticket, or they use it for shopping in the US and be like, I didn't give anybody my card data, right? My ATM card is with me. What is the issue? What are the issues? Then you notice that since they banned that policy, since a policy came out by CBN that your cards cannot make international transaction, you barely hear of those problems. How many of us noticed that? You barely hear that they just bribe someone's money from ATM card, maybe they use it for one transaction, it cannot be monitored, and so on and so forth. You barely hear that. Until now that CBN has put another policy out there. And that's why I see that, I tell people, Nigerian banks are one of the most secure, not in terms of infrastructures, but in terms of policies. You can barely make a wire transfer in Nigeria because CBN actually monitors all bank transactions. And that's what mistakes people make in the past. Most of these daily cash, they have their own policy. different from Bank of America. But in Nigeria, CBN monitors everything. If I will make a transaction of 5 million, there's a point on that transaction depending on your KYC. And even with this tax reform bill, there will be a lot regarding that. And now that Nigeria should have a centralized system. So Nigeria is very secure based on policies, not actually based on a lot of infrastructure development, but based on policies. Because we are restricted to a lot of things in terms of financial sector. So that's what policies can do, right? They can help a little in terms of infrastructure weaknesses. They have the health insurance, HIPAA, right? Now, what are the simplification and rules regarding to HIPAA? One, we have electronic transaction and code set of standards. I'm using the same healthcare transaction, code set, and identifiers. Now, over there where you have insurance, you have medical care, most of them are digitalized. And now that we have the invention of IoTs, right, in medical care is very important. Let me give an example. Drip before was mechanical. That means that the doctor is the one that will mechanically check the drip, maybe one drop per second. But now that some of them are automated and the doctor can check it on tap, if that network is like that, that means that what someone can have an intrusion, and someone that is receiving 1 drop per second is now receiving 100 drops of drip per second. What do you think will happen to the person? Someone that is meant to receive 1 drop per second and receiving 100 drops per second, because that drip is now automated. You just say that, Baba really, Baba has done here. So those things are very important in digitalized world. All right. Also, privacy rule. Now, this is one of the major rules that has to do with HIPAA. That's why HIPAA is very important. That means that the protection of personal health information. No matter what you are doing in life, health is very important. Most people want, especially people at the top level. In fact, going to government assets in terms of military, a lot of people, this is private. Most of you saw the video regarding this Russian president Putin. You know that whenever he goes on a foreign trip, even his feces, they are being carried so that nobody can predict his health condition. Even his urine, they don't allow anybody to have access to it. They carry it back to the country because of power, politics. They are very important. So one thing why we follow HIPAA is privacy rule, and also security rule, like I just mentioned, confidentiality, integrity, and availability. Like some people still medical insurance and so on and so forth. And also because there's an introduction of IoT. Like in 2020, there was a time that they were trying to do a robot that could do operation remotely. So that means if there's a doctor in China or a surgeon in China, I don't need to come to the US to do the operation. I found that the robot that there, I just need to put on my gloves and do whatever thing. But the only problem is that if you try in Nigeria here and the doctor has opened you up, you are your owner. So that means that there should be no network issue. Because there's network issue and it's hanging, and the radio opened you up, what will happen? Then there's a lot of problems, right? And with the invention of chips, now most of you can go online and watch a movie called I Am Human. Now this is what the movie is about, and this project happened in 2016. Now, if someone is paralyzed, the muscle are still very active, but the problem is that the brain cannot connect with the muscle, or someone that is having stroke or something like that. So this is what they did in that documentary, because it was a real life experience. Now, since that your hand, or someone like that is blind also, our eyes are just camera. It's the brain that interprets colors, right? So what they did in that project was they used a microcontroller. And I've told you the effect of microcontroller. They can convert to us a normal electronic device to a network device. That means what? The microcontroller, just like transducers also, right? They can convert, they are like sensors, they can convert mechanical energy or physical energy to electronic energy. What this microcontroller is doing is that they are doing like machine learning, just like the way a baby learns how to walk, a baby learns how to write. So that microcontroller also will start learning, right? So they'll put a chip in your head that they are microcontrollers. So it will serve as a bridge between the brain and that muscle. or the brain and that camera they put in your eyes, so that the microcontroller can understand the way your brain works and also learn and also be able to send signal to whatever part of your body. And actually it worked, even though the person died, the person that was paralyzed later worked, but he learned how to move his hands at the end of the day. And the good thing about machines is that they learn faster than human beings. Now, machine learning was also from our brain. Example is artificial neural networks. Now, this was that some of you are hearing for the first time. I'm not going there, but you can just jot them down for further purposes, not to make it complex for you. I'm just trying to open your eyes to a lot of things. And that's why this course is also there, also for eye opening. You might not understand all the technologies, but also to be, okay, I have a job to do here. I understand this, I understand the concept. Then I can go further to read about it. So just like the way a child learns. Example, some of you will see someone for the first time, and when you are seeing the person again, you'll be like, I know this person somewhere, but I can't get. It's because your brain has not fully understand that person's face or the error in the face. Or some of you are meeting a twin for the first time, you can't actually differentiate. But the more you see them every day, the more your brain learns about them. They can differentiate that this is Taye, this is Kendi, because your brain also learns. It learns about the errors between those faces. Also, the same way machine also learn, but they learn faster. They learn faster. But the problem of that project was the security. That means that what all those information will need a storage, because there's now a microcontroller in your brain or a chip in your body. Now your brain has its own storage, which God gave to us. But now that you are putting a chip, it needs a storage where those information will be stored. The problem was that who will store that information? That means anybody that stores that information can actually control it, because your brain works with signals. That means that what they can tell the person with the chip to go and enter river, and the person will enter the river. But your brain works with signals. That was the flaw of the project, the security problem. And I'm sure that as it's going, there's a lot of development in that level. Most of you can say, I know that there's a lot involved, a lot of things are happening. Then we have the national identifier requirement and the enforcement rule. Okay, I think it's 1 hour. Please let's go for a 10 minutes break. So we'll be back by 3:15. All right, welcome back, everyone. Okay, I was going through the comment section and I saw someone asking that is IPA applicable in Nigeria? No, not for now. It's not really grounded. I barely see any of these healthcare going to following IPA. But I know, of course, NDPR and ISO 27001, because ISO 27001 deals with ISMS as Information Security Management System. That means anything that has to do with information management system. So you can follow ISO 27001. Okay, as some of you are waiting for practical, that's correct. So we do more of hands-ons when we get to ethical hacking essentials. So we demonstrate a lot of practicals during EHE. That will be next week. So you'll be able to see a lot of hands-on. So by the time I'm doing the attack, you remember that we've talked about defense before. So when I'm doing the attack, and you are saying that, I'll tell you that, okay, these are why these flaws are happening, which we see majorly in most of these organizations, right? So by the time I'm having access to, I'm getting a session, I'm having access to a network, or whatever I'm doing when we are doing ethical hacking essential, then you understand why defense is actually more important and the benefit of even having penetration testers or ethical hackers in your environment. Because defense alone, you are being reactive, for bringing threat intelligence or also penetration testers, red teamers, makes you more proactive. So you're able to see further, you're able to understand attackers. In fact, you understand the flaws of the system or what can happen. So you're not just protecting based on rules, you are protecting based also on what that can happen. You can predict an attack. Okay, then you have the Sardonyx Education. So this protects investors and public by increasing the accuracy and also the reliability of corporate disclosures. Then service audit hat goes to tied to XI, that's corporate fraud accountability. That's where you can do more of auditing, look at tax returns, and so on and so forth under service audit hat. Although some of these are proprietary to some countries, some of them are not applicable to Africa, and so on and so forth. But I've told that one of the major things that are applicable to Africa here is ISO 27001, that is, talks about Information Security Management System, and also PCI DSS, and also have Nigeria Data Protection Regulation. So those three. Now NDPR is under a subset. Most of it were picked from GDPR, that General Data Protection and Regulation. They have the Gramm-Leach-Bailey Act. So this talks about the ease of transfer of financial information between institution and bank while making the rights of the individual more specific through security involvement. So this talks about protecting consumer personal financial information held by financial institutions and their service provider. Also, the officers and directors of the financial institution shall be subject to and personally liable for a civil penalty of no more than 10,000 for each violation. But as time goes on, right, most of these financial institutions also follow CBN security regulations. Right? They also have CBN security regulations. But I'm hoping that with time, most of these will be passed as a bill in National Assembly. And also, CSAN will do more regarding these things. I've never heard of who these guys are, CSAN. So please, you can also be part of this body, the CSEAN. Yeah. So also, we not only follow this international standard or framework, we also can develop ours, right? Maybe Africa, Nigeria, so just like we have NDPR, right? We can develop more and be able to pass them into law. Although I know they're working on a lot of things which are actually outseen, right? And we've had input regarding some of these things, especially cyber stalking, because that's a lot we have in our court cases, right? That's with cybercrime. They have the General Data Protection and Regulation. Now, this came into effect in May 25, 2018, and is the most stringent on privacy. Although we have SOC 2 also. Now, SOC 2 is majorly for US companies. SOC 2, a lot of years, it's not really new, but it's also new. So SOC 2, most of them prefer to follow SOC 2 because SOC 2 have about five laws that it follows. But also GDPR, right, is very serious on privacy. And that's why Nigeria also, the NDPR was taken majorly from GDPR. So the GDPR will levy harsh fines against those who violate its privacy. And that's one of the issues we are having today. Companies breaching privacy. One of the reasons why they breach privacy is because of marketing, advertisement. So they know much more about you. And there's a thin line between privacy and security measures and a lot of things. There's always a thin line. Even in companies, even as a staff, right? So by the time we get to mobile device management, example, being your own device and so on, company-owned devices. Now, most of the time, the company wants to secure their own devices. Let's say a company give you a phone, or they give you a mobile device, and they tell that, okay, this device is COPE. What I mean by COPE, that means it's company owned personal, you can personally enable it. That means you can put your personal information so that you don't have 2 or more 3 devices. Now, some of the time they put some security measures on it so that they can have access to that information. But there's a thin line between that security measure and a spyware. Most companies would develop it as a spyware. That means they can spy on whatever you are doing. So privacy is one of the issues now is privacy. And that's why you see most, even big companies have issues with this. Example, Meta. There's time that Meta has to pay a lot of people regarding breach of privacy. Let me see if I can see that news case. I have a lot of news cases regarding that. Meta breach of privacy payment. Let me see if I can just see that. So you can see the European Union top data price has fined Meta 251 million. This was back in 2018. And the Data Protection Commission also reprimanded and fined data. This was 2024, just last year. It's at the time that Meta could actually monitor you offline. I know that Meta has a lot regarding when we talk about AIs and a lot of things. So a lot of things are going crazy on that. And most of you find that why is it that US is so so crazy about TikTok being owned by a US person. It's still the same thing because they know how they get this information. There was a time during Obama's tenure that they were doing this data gathering to gain more information regarding people and so on and so forth like that. And Meta is one of the two they also use. And that's why I see that there's a time that that's why most of you have to read. Look at all these things sometimes, not that I don't have it in my head, because I'm also interested in reading. And I think that security goes just about the technical aspect. Most of the time, the solution are from what you read now, because people are built based on culture, based on religions, and based on their educational background. That's how people are. And that's why I see that every human being has a pattern. And that's why I can also predict people from their digital footprint. Example, if I want to attack someone that is Japanese and I'm using an English word list, when am I going to be able to have access? If I'm looking for a British person, I can look for pet names and all those things because I know that they are more attracted to pets and a lot of things. So people are always like that. If I call someone now and I ask you for a particular number 10 times, there's a number that will keep coming to your head. So people are built based on patterns. So most of these attacks also are like social engineering, and that's why Yahoo will keep working. It's not that because they don't have a security system, but because it deals with social engineering. People are built on this thing. You can't tell people not to love, you can't tell people not to relate with people. And that's why security awareness is very also important. In fact, I think Nigeria also even find Meta. Yeah, let me see that case. Nigeria finding Meta. I think Nigeria also they also find finding Meta. Yes, so you can see. So the NCCP, I think they held a 250 fine against for breaching data protection and also consumer rights laws. So they are one of these people that actually breach privacy. But that's what GDPR is talking about, right? This breach of privacy. Okay. So what is GDPR principle? Lawness, fairness, and transparency, the purpose limitation, data minimization, accuracy, storage limitation, integrity and confidentiality, and accountability. We also have the Data Protection Act. So this to make provision for the regulation of the processing of information relating to individuals and to make provision with information commissioner function, right, under a lot of marketing code of practice and connected purposes. And this also was in 1980, but it took effect also in 2018 after, during GDPR also within the European Union. That when also the Data Protection Act, it's also a 2018 act. Then we have the ISO series, right? So, like I told you, like most people go for ISO 27001. That's the former ISMS specification. We have the auditing, we have the implementer. So some of you, when you go to GRC, you learn more about this. So we have all this to 31. We have for network security, we have for cyber security, we have for business continuity, we have for risk management, we had for incident response, that ISO 2, yes, 27,005, we have 27,035 incident management, and so on and so forth like that. And also we have for 27,799 in healthcare. They also have a Digital Millennium Copyright Act. So this law implements two 1996 treaties of what this talks about intellectual property, right? Maybe software, any intellectual property. So this help with what intellectual property. So this prohibits against the circumvention of technological protection measures employed by copyright owners, right? So this talks about intellectual property. This helps you with intellectual properties. Then I'll stop at FISMA, right? So this talks about federal government. So this ensures that effectiveness of information security controls to support federal operation and assets. Now, I don't expect anybody to be in this business if you don't have anything to do with federal government. It's like you are putting your life on the line. Anything to do with federal government, this is what federal FISMA, anything that to do with federal government, right, is classified and top secret. So let's talk about physical control. So we've talked about administrative control, we've talked about compliance, we've seen different kind of compliance, we've talked about PCI DSL for payment card, we've talked about EPA for health, we've talked about Sarbanes-Oxley Act, right, that protect investors. We've talked about GDPR, we've talked about Data Protection Act, We've talked about intellectual property. We've talked about FISMA. So these are common. We talk about ISO series. So these are common regulatory compliance. And I've told you one that is very common in Nigeria, right? We have PCI DSS for payment card because one of the people that drive technology in Nigeria is actually fintechs, the banking system, the financial systems. So they follow PCI DSS. Also, they follow ISO 27001. And also, we have the NDPR, which is Nigeria Data Protection Regulations. Please, do you have any question before I move ahead? Anybody with any question? Okay. So we've talked about administrative controls. Now we are moving to physical controls. Now, what is the importance of physical security? Now, it's very common in this part of the world that people actually underrate physical security, and it's very, very important. Very, very important. Physical security. Well, it's because majorly we don't have let's say criminals relating to hackers in this part of the world, or we don't even have cycles that hackers in this part of the world. But in foreign countries, very, very important. In fact, very, very, very important. It's a major aspect for them because the worst thing can have is a cycle that is also an hacker. You see how most people that are seen on that social media over here doing Yahoo and all those things. But in foreign countries, you have a lot, and also people that deal with national crime, like national cyber crime warfare, which are very important. But over here, it's still fair, but at least. So, what is the need for physical security? Now, a successful unauthorized physical asset may lead to theft, damage, or modification of the information systems, right? Now, a physical security breach can directly impact confidentiality, integrity, and availability of information and system. Now, physical security is the basis of any information security program in an organization. Is the basis. That's layer one. Is the basis. Even before you start that acquirement of property, is the basis, depending on the kind of services we are rendering. It's very important. Now, it deals with restricting unauthorized physical access to the infrastructure, office, premises, workstation, and employees of the organization. So we also have physical security attack vectors. Now it can be natural or environmental threat. Example, floods. Example, fire. Example, earthquake, lightning and thunder, temperature and humidity. And it can have man-made threats, which can be vandalism, device loss, damage of physical devices, theft, terrorism, social engineering, and unauthorized access to systems. Now, this terrorism can even be a very important case. Example, in this part of the country, NEPA taking light or PHCN taking light is not a problem because most of our lights are not automated. So that means if someone even steal your cable, it doesn't affect the whole community, or someone stole transformer, it only affect the part of the community, right? And that is that NEPA still costing light because that system is not fully automated. So we still talk about cyber physical system. But over there, if they don't have light for like a week, it's already becoming a terrorism case because almost everything depends on power. The healthcare, a lot of people will die depend on power. Almost everything. But Nigeria, we are used to it. You see people opening generator because over there, the light system is actually automated. That's why once your life finished, nobody needs to come and cut your wire. It's automated. So that means once it's automated and it's on the network, those are cyber physical systems. That means someone else can control that light apart from the authorized people. That means someone can hijack the whole light in the US because it's automated and it's on the network. So it needs a lot of security. I think there was a case, was it in Spain or in France, where they had these light issues. I don't know if you else heard of it. Was it in Spain or in Greece? I would like someone to tell me about it again. Did you hear about that news? Okay, Joshua, please, let me allow your mic so that I can also enlighten us about it. I mean, go ahead. Joshua,
Good
please go
afternoon.
ahead. Good afternoon, Joshua.
It was in the US. It happened. It was in the US. It happened recently, like about 2 years ago. A group
Yeah.
of hackers from
I
California or
mean,
so,
all right. But how
and
was
they
the
were
damage
demanding,
to
and they were,
them?
and they were demand.
And they were
Sorry.
demanding money, right? That's ransomware.
Yes, they were demanding. They were demanding about $15 million or thereabouts.
Wow.
And
Wow.
I think the money was paid. The money was paid. because virtually all of the heads, their hospitals and everything was down. I think they took control of the gas pipe or something.
Wow, wow. Now imagine how much it will cost them for that amount of time there wasn't light. So that is very serious. That's very serious. So that's why fiscal system is actually foreign countries take a lot of it, but Nigeria too we are trying regarding it, honestly. So it's very, very important. Okay, thank you for that enlightenment, Joshua. So we have different types of physical security controls, right? We have the preventive. That means you prevent security violation and enforce various access control mechanisms. Example, door lock. That means you are preventing someone from entering. Security guard. That means someone at the gate, you are preventing someone from entering and other measures. So those are preventive. That means you are preventing a security violation. We have a detective controls. That means you are detecting a violation. Example are motion detectors, alarm systems. That means they are detecting if there is a violation. We have video surveillance and other methods. And there was a time that I worked in a Nigerian interior force before. So there was a case that they brought to me, not to me actually, the department that time. And this was the issue. It was in Kogi. So a man carried money to an hotel. So he was coming out of the hotel, and the hotel looked like this. Let me just give this a chronology. So let's say this is the staircase up, this is the room, this is the staircase, this is the room rather. So this is the staircase, it has to come down, and here is the reception. This is the reception, this is his room. Yeah. So the man was coming like this. Of course, there's a camera here, there's a camera here. So these are cameras. There's a camera here, there's a camera here. So the man was coming and they killed the man within the steps. Let me use another color. So the man was killed somewhere here. This staircase. This is where the man was killed. So the man was killed on this staircase. But when we were looking at the camera, we saw that everybody that came from the reception also showed there. That means everybody that came that was moving towards the section to this staircase showed at the other side. And also everybody that was coming, and everybody that was coming from this staircase, from this upstairs, also showed here. So that means nobody was hiding here. That means nobody was following the man, and nobody was coming when the man was coming, and the man was killed. And they've been on that case for about, I think, 4 months. And they checked the cameras, and they saw that there was no problem. What do you think happened? Who can think that? What do you think happened? A security person, what do you think happened? Okay, let me admit now. Nat. Okay, Nat, please unmute and go ahead.
Yeah, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Nat.
Yeah, so from what you explained, I'll probably think there was a loop. That's from my perspective. So because if people were saying, so I probably feel like there was a continuation of the video that I played earlier. So that's like a loop. So it continued playing, but something happened in between. So that's what I feel happened.
All right, thank you, Nat. Well, you know that Nigeria, we are not that sophisticated, but well, don't let me underrate us. But it wasn't really a loop. Okay, let me meet Mohammed. Let me allow Mohammed. So Mohammed, please go ahead. Mohammed, please unmute yourself. Okay.
So what I think is the man was killed in what is basically called a blind spot. That is the places where the cameras can't reach.
Of course, this is a blind spot. Yes,
Yeah, so
of course, this is a blind spot. This
yes.
is a blind spot. But of course, but everybody that showed up here also showed up here. Are you there, Mohammed? Everybody
Yes,
that showed up here, they showed up at this other side. Everybody that showed up here showed up here, and nobody was following him at that particular moment.
Okay. How about the timing?
That is correct. Thank you so much. So what solved the case was 12:45 to 1:10 was missing. But you know how our system is, they were just watching the video back and forth, but they were not conscious about the timing. So of course, this solved the whole problem that they were struggling to solve. So there was this time was deleted. Once the time is deleted, the next is that I need to know where the DVR is, of course. Where is the DVR? And who were the people in control of that DVR? And that's of the case. And that's of the case. In foreign countries, you can see that where security cuts across almost everything. Like NASTED, they can be a loop. And you'll be seeing the same thing. And that one is even crazier. And there's something about these CCTV cameras that also, if you don't do it well, there's something you have the signal cable and also have the power cable. If you don't do the signal cable can actually, rather the power cable can also affect the signal cable. And also most of these things, just a simple amplifier can cause a lot of problems. So you can see that cybersecurity cuts across a lot of things, even to physical security. Always being conscious. That's why I said it's a lifestyle and it's also a mindset. Now imagine they can be on this case. I imagine they can even, I'm sure that after some week you just collecting money from the family of the victim. Because you'll be tired. They won't so they just say that they are on it collecting money and that case will not be solved. Okay, so we're talking about detective, how video surveillance can also be a detective measure. So you also have deterrent controls. These are used to discourage attackers and also send warning messages. Right? These include different warning signs. Example, where there are dogs, you see that this is dangerous. Where there are cable wires, so you just discourage what the attackers. Also, we also have this also in technical perspective. For example, if I tell you that you should use a complex password, example, maybe 8 characters, and you use special characters, it's not because the attacker cannot hack that system, but you are luring the attacker away. That's what you are doing, just like a deterrent control. So most of you don't understand that's one of the reasons. Not that because they can't hack you. And also in hacking, which we still learn next week, there's something called hacking time and hacking value. Attackers don't just attack, there's no value to it. So majorly attackers attack when the hacking value is greater than the hacking time or is equal to the hacking time. Now the hacking value can be money, can be revenge, can be anything. But there's always a hacking value and hacking time. So majorly also in this system, that what police also can do. It's not that it's totally secure, but if it make it very, very good or your security mature model is very high, it's not that they can't attack you, right? And that's why sometimes you must also understand your risk based on what you are providing, the value of the asset. For example, does your company actually attract attackers? Example, financial organization will always attract attackers. Of course, they would. So most of the time, we are telling you to put a measure. And most of you feel that I know it's not important. It's because you are just luring the attacker away. There's nothing much. So this can also be what deterrent controls. So you also have recovery controls, which are used to recover from security violations and restore and information and system to persistent state. Example are disaster recovery, business continuity plans, backup system, and other processes. So I think that this business continuity means that what being able to continue business even when there's a disaster. The bad thing is that you can't continue business when there's a disaster. And that's why most of these compliance that I've told you before, PCI DSS, most of these things still fall under risk management. Because most of the time we have more business risks than technical risks. I've told you that number of times. So risk, and I've said that risk is actually based on your assets. Risk is based on your assets. It's different from vulnerability. Vulnerability can be general, but risk is based on your assets. So you must be able to continue business no matter the disaster. And also, you must be able to recover from that disaster as fast as possible. And that's why there are also policies. If there are incident response policies, from a lot of policies regarding their business continuity plans and disaster recovery plans and so on and so forth like that. They have the compensating controls. These are used as an alternative control, right? In case there's an intended control, for example, backup power, right? So let's say there is a power failure. Example, there if Facebook data center. If I'm mentioning Facebook now, most of you feel Facebook is the cloud. No, these are Facebook look like. Facebook is a data center, and I'm sure most of you don't even know that. Some of us rather Facebook data center. So when I'm mentioning Facebook or that page I'm talking about, this is what I'm talking. This is Facebook actually. Can you see it? This is Facebook. So this data center is actually Facebook. That way you are accessing the information, and it can be segmented based on regions, right? And that's also cloud provider do now. Example, Azure, AWS. If Azure, I think Microsoft won't have a data center under the water, yes, because of um data center under the water, because of human factors and it. So these are some of them that I can see. This Microsoft. So they have some of these data centers. So most of the time we are accessing those information. You're actually accessing those data centers. And some of them always need light 24/7. So they need to be live. But once there's no lights, there's no availability, there's no I can access that information. And that's like a denial of service. So you sometimes need backup systems. If almost every industry need backup systems to run your businesses and so on and so forth. Okay. Also, depending on the kind of services you are providing, you have to depend on the location consideration. Example, a financial sector now, you now go to one village that is very tight. There is no police around this, there's no military branch around this, there's nobody that can secure that financial aspect. What do you think will happen? Of course, robbers will come easily now because of where you put the location of the bank. Why do you think banks are always where there's exposure? Because if there's a robbery, they can easily what? A lot of people can be involved. That means the police should not be far from it and so on and so forth. A police station rather. Then what are the neighboring buildings? Some of you, if your building is too small and you are within tall buildings, you won't have network. But most of these masts are always 180 degrees to each other. There will be interference, there will be blockage. I don't have a strong signal or radio wave. It doesn't have enough power. If I just say, no network is good there, yes, because of the location. And local consideration, these are very important. Example, cabling. Most of you have seen most of these are also doing cabling, especially in Nigeria. Yeah? And most of the time, see that they have visuals because they have to go to the king to say that please, we want to lay this cable. I don't want your boys to destroy these cables. Because when they destroy this cable, it will affect the network connectivity. So you have to consider how the laying of those pipes will also go. Example, also for petrols or crude oil rather, or petroleum products. That's when they have to go and meet their king, the local chiefs, to tell them that okay, please, we need you to talk to your boys how these cables will be laid out. Also for network, I just talked about fiber optic cables, even fiber cables. How did they lay? Most of them are laid. An example, Nigeria is doing about 96 or 10,000 kilometers fiber optic cables. So sometimes they have to meet all these local people and also settle them so that they won't destroy those cables. And we have what joint tenancy risk. That means the people you are sharing the building with. Example, you have a data center now, or maybe it's a tier 2 data center. You're not sharing this with someone, and you're already people's card information. Is that even possible? You are sharing maybe top floor or different floors, and you have a data center there. And there's a lot of problems. You are going to have a whole building segmented from a lot of people. Then you can also look for site architecture consideration. That means identify what are critical infrastructures. I'm sure that most of you have, some of you rather have not seen a data center before, but I wish that you could see an example. We have a client like that we work, that they have data centers and we work with. And we notice that some that have seen data centers before, you see that they're always isolated from the main building. I also have been to a data center before. Raise up your hands if you have gone to a data center before. Nobody. Okay, Nelson, please go ahead. How does a data center look like? How strict is it? And having access to data center. Okay, let me unmute. So let me give you access, Nelson. So I'm coming in. Let me give you access. Okay, Nelson, you can meet your file. Please, the other person too can feel it so that I'll give you access. Okay, Manuel. So Nelson, please go ahead and unmute your mind.
All right, can you hear me now?
Yes, please go ahead, Nelson.
Right. Data centers, in most cases, if it's a big company, it's more or less like a warehouse where we have racks, we have a lot of servers making noise, beeping. The place is cool, is well electricity is well AC.
That's HVAC.
Yes, but if it's a company kind of just in a building, you have a room where you have the servers that controls the network of the building.
Good. Does anybody just have access to that data center? Can anybody just walk in at any time?
Oh, you must have appointed.
Exactly. Thank you so much, Nelson. Emmanuel, I would like to hear your contribution. So let me mute your mic. Okay, can mute your mic now, Emmanuel.
Yeah, good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, please go ahead, Emmanuel.
So it's exactly what he said. Data centers where you have lots of server machines and cooling system, drying systems, and all those things. But not a lot of people have access. I was privileged to have a little access, not even like big access to it. Like just wanted to show us what it looks like, and I had to take a peek. But from outside, the window was now so I could see the rows of servers put there.
All right, thank you, Emmanuel. So that's our data center, and some of them are even isolated from the main building. Right, sometimes you see some very sophisticated guys at the entrance, and some of them the parking lot is far from where the data center is, so you can't just have access. And also environmental, you see that if they have a suitable HVAC system, it's always cool. Always cool. Nobody can just have, okay, Kenneth, let me allow Kenneth. Okay, Kenneth, I would like to hear from you. Kenneth, I've allowed you. Please now meet your mic.
Okay, I have attended. I've gone to one of the data center for NTN. Anyway, I work with NTN.
Okay, yes.
Right.
Yes.
So
In Lagos,
I
right?
one of their
The
data.
one at
Yes, here in Lagos.
Falomorada.
No.
Is it the one at, okay.
Yeah, yes, Palomar, but they have a designated one that is restricted. That is around I2 side.
Okay.
It's just a data channel. That place is not even, nobody knows that place even existed. That's the only place that all the whole server is coming into. So even when they were doing that instance, I was surprised that such place even existed. So I've gone here. There were a lot of beeping, a lot of lights, a lot of connections here that links. It's like a server that is linked to different places.
Have you gone there at night before?
Yes, I was there till late in the evening time.
How was the light outside? Could it blind your eyes? The light outside.
Yes, like
exactly.
it was too bright.
if a pin drop, you will see it. As if a pin drop down. All right.
Oh no, you won't really see it because of multiple colors.
I'm talking about the outside, right? Where you are coming in.
Yes, of course you see it.
Yeah.
Yes. It's too bright.
Yes. So thank you so much. It's good that a lot of people have experienced that. Exactly. So those things are very important, right? Because nobody should have access to them. Then also keep parking away from the main building. So most of the time, say that the parking lot is actually different from the main, in which you have to walk so they can see everybody walking to the building. So the parking lot is actually different. That means you have to take some walk. Some people have a parking lot building, right? They have a building that you go and park, then you walk into the building where they see you coming into the building. Then also you have firefighting system, fire suppression. You have for solid combustible, flammable, electrical, combustible metal, oil and outline fast. So you can read this when you have access to the materials. Then also we have physical barriers, right? So we have the fence and electric fences. We have the bollards. Now these are for to control vehicles, right? Then we have the constitutes these facilities entry or access. They also have the man trap. Then there are some that you see that also yes, some of those man trap, you just put your ID card there so you have access. So you have access to them. Then also security personnel. Now, efficient and well-trained security personnel are critical to implement, monitor, and maintain the physical security of organization. It's not the one that the one that will drink and just walk away. No. So these are very, very important. So they can actually see and know what is going on. So these are people involved in physical security, include guards, safety officer, plant security officers, and supervisors. So they also should undergo training, and they should be professional. They should be professional. We also have physical locks, we have the mechanical locks, we have the digital locks, we have the electromagnetic lock. Most of you have seen this in banks before, right? And we have the combination lock, maybe for a safe or whatever it is. Also, we have concealed weapon and contraband detection devices. Right? We have the metal detectors, we have the X-ray inspection system, and we have the walk-through metal detectors also. So most of you have seen these at the airports or at the train station, right? Now we have the man trap. Now this is common with first bank. You either have to enter that man trap, then you have access to the next door, right? So in case someone wants to come and is running away, he can't just have access, right? It can be trapped into that device. So that's what we call a man trap. So you have an entry and an exit door at opposite side. So they can see everybody. So before you enter that building, you must go through that man trap. So example is first bank. Most of you have seen this in major first bank buildings. It's first bank that actually implement this man trap a lot. They also have warning sign. You can see restricted area, authorized personnel only. We have alarm systems, we have video surveillance, and we have different kind of camera. We have the dome, we have the 360, we have the bullet type camera, we have the outdoor and the indoor cameras. Now we have the lighting system. This is what I'm talking about. Some of these buildings, with at the night is very, very bright. So anybody going, even at night, they can see them. They can see them. So the type of lighting system can be continuous, standby, movable, and emergency lighting system. And some of these time, the lighting system also go to in the building itself. Example, if we have a forensic building, right? Now, this is very bright because sometimes I have to work with some electronic devices, recovery of hard disks, recovery of memory systems, and so on and so forth. So we need a very bright system, as in bright lights also. Very, very bright. They also have power supply. We have the standby, we have the delta conversion, double conversion. You can read all the for power supply. We now have solar systems, right? You have solar systems also. Also, workplace security environment. Look at the session areas. Now, the session should be spacious because one of the major vulnerable place in the building is always the reception area. And why? Because the section is meant to be friendly, it's meant to be comfortable, and so on and so forth. And sometimes the section is always busy, especially when it's crowded, right? And there's a lot of information you can also get at the reception. So important files or documents or devices should not be kept on the reception desk. The thing that should be kept there is basically magazine, advertisements of your company, and so on and so forth like that. Now, the design and placement of the session desk should help in discouraging inappropriate access to the admin area. Not that some can just go to the back and just move to where the admin is or have access to the system. Now, computers should only face the receptionist, it should not face the visitors. It should face the receptionist. when you're not in the restaurant, the restaurant that has a camera, be the computer can fish to see what you are buying. But in a security environment or in a main official environment, the system should not face you. There's nothing, no business with the system. Unless you are going to a restaurant or you are going to what they call it now, a supermarket. Now, computers at the session desk must always be locked, yes, when the session personnel is away from the desk. So that means that we should be spacious. That means that what you are not too close with the receptionist. That means if you want to see the receptionist, you have to stand and move. You can see this way this man is standing here. That means the seat always a little far away from the receptionist. So if you need to see the receptionist, you have to stand and walk a few meters to meet the receptionist. So it's not too crowded. It's not too crowded. Of course, server and backup device security. Because with just a flash drive, most of you are still moving like that, right? With just a flash drive, a lot of, and most of these people that I see, there are some of them I make because they will not show you where they are putting the flash drive there. So most of them are just connecting back to this flash drive to have access to the system. They're like a backdoor. So critical and network access such as servers and backup, and also log servers. It might not be here. Log servers also should be kept in a separate room, because if there are no logs, there's no incident response and forensics. If our SOC analysts are working on nonsense, there are no logs. That log is also a life-saving server. Because if there's any problem, you can always go back to the logs and see where the problem is. And that way you can have correlation to see if there's any intrusion or if there's any attack. You can also do forensics. So log servers are always very important. They also should be kept in a separate room, because if you misplace those logs, your computer should log. In fact, those logs, your computer logs almost everything. Now, depending on what is important to you, you can also determine what your system or your environment or your network can also log. Now, protect the server room and backup devices with what appropriate access control. Not just everybody should have access to it. Then also keep the server room and backup devices under what video surveillance. Then critical access and also removable devices. You can also secure network cables, right? So that rat will not also eat it. So secure network cables. Example, secure like where the DVR is for your CCTV camera, it should be secured. If you go to some area, I see where the DVR is. It's very bad. That means that someone can do something and delete whatever it is from the DVR. So those also should be kept. They also secure portable devices. So that's majorly about physical controls. So let's also go for another 10-minute break. So we'll be back by 4:15. Okay, I hope we are settled. You were able to take coffee, you were able to take a drink, you were able to walk around. So welcome back. So let's continue. So we've talked about administrative controls, we've talked about physical controls, and now we are going to technical controls, right? Now, most of the time, this is where some people find it difficult, right? And it has a lot of concepts, but you can't run away from it. Now, no matter what career path you are going in cybersecurity, right, you need to understand some technical aspects. Whether GLC, whether cyber law, whether auditing, no matter the aspects, right? And most of the time, most people going under management feel that I don't need a technical. It has gone beyond that. Now, in fact, in the US, GRC is oversaturated because some people feel that I don't need to know anything technical. I just want to go to be writing compliance, writing policies, and so on and so forth. But now it has become an issue because if you don't understand the technicality, right, of cybersecurity, you have issues in that career path. Because not all compliance are actually visible sometimes. You need to understand the company, you need to understand the mission, the vision, the business. before you can actually create the right policies. I need to understand some technical jargons, right? Some technicality before you can write the right policies. Because some of this time it will not be visible. Sometimes finances will not even make some of those policies visible. So you can't just copy and paste because you've done this for this particular SME, you want to come and copy and paste. Sometimes it might not work. So you need to understand the technicality, which will help you be a better GLC person. I'm just talking about one career path. There's a lot, right? So maybe at the end of this course, we talk about career paths, what you need to do to be a guru in that. Okay, so let's talk about, we are going to talk about 9 of them. So let's start with network segmentation. Now, network segmentation enhances the network security by creating layers of the network and separating the servers containing sensitive information from the rest of the servers. Now, segmentation is very important. In fact, it's one of the baseline or one of the most important things you need to do regarding security. One, segmentation makes your network more secure. That means that if an attacker even is able to have access, he doesn't have access to all the resources if you segment. That means it's decentralized. But if you just centralize, that means if he has access to one, he has access to all. So segmentation, example, if accounting department is affected, does not mean that marketing should be affected. Does not mean that auditing should be affected. Does not mean that IT should be affected. But if it's just in a loop, that means if one device or any department is affected, it will affect the whole company if you don't segment. Also, it makes troubleshooting very important and containment very important. That means that if there's a particular department that is having issue, you can easily contain it. Or if there's a device that is having issue, you can easily know where to contain it. Example, if there's a spread of malware, you can easily contain that attack or malware if you segment your network. But if you don't segment your network, that means that if you have to troubleshoot or to contain or to remediate, it will be very hard. So segmentation is very important. So segmentation is the practice of splitting a network into smaller network segments and separating groups of systems or applications from each other. Now, someone asked me a question in one of our interviews when I was coming up. I don't know if everybody can answer this question. What is micro-segmentation? Has anybody heard of that before? Someone actually asked me when I was still young in IT and I was applying for a particular job. He asked me what micro-segmentation is. Okay, is anyone raising up their hands? Okay, so is anybody say something on the chat box? Okay, I'll give us that as a reader assignment. So I will ask when next we meet, right? What do you mean by micro-segmentation? And it's actually a cybersecurity technical. It's different from, it's related to segmentation. But what is micro segmentation? So I'm going to do a research and I'll have to, it's not something I'm submitting naturally, right? But I just wanted to learn about it. So in a segmented network, groups of system applications that have no interaction with each other will be placed in a different network segment. And also you can create access control easily. Example, if I segment my network, I can decide that, okay, marketing and receptionists might not talk to each other. They might not be able to use a particular port, maybe FCP. I can decide that, okay, receptionists can only send SMS to account department. And account department can actually might not do anything to reception department. So I can create access control based on segmentation. It will be very easy for me. And I can define rules based on different ports. I say that, okay, one person can communicate using FTP, another person cannot communicate using FTP. So I can have standard access control list or extended access control list, depending on what I want to do. But segmentation will make it easier. Now, what are the security benefits of network segmentation? Improve security, of course. Better access control. That's what I just said now. Better access control. improve monitoring, improve performance, and better containment. So that means if there's an issue and you have segmentation well placed, that means you can easily contain that problem. It doesn't need to spread to all your system, and it will minimize your financial loss in case of any data breach or an attack. So we also have different types of network segmentation. We have the physical segmentation and we have the logical segmentation. Now, the physical segmentation is splitting of larger network into smaller physical components. So this segment can communicate via intermediary devices such like switches, hub, or router. Physical network segmentation can be easy approach to divide the network, but it's expensive as it's occupy mostly because it's physical, right? That means that I'm having each switch for each department and so on. So it's actually very, very expensive. That means I have to buy a lot of intermediary devices and so on and so forth. It take a lot of space. But I can, of course, logical is actually more sensible, right? Now, in logical segmentation, example are VLANs, which are what? Virtual local area network, which are isolated logically. So you can be seeing one switch, but I can isolate them logically. Even though you are seeing just one switch, they can be different departments and I can't different VLANs on it. So if VLAN is considered an independent logical unit, so I can have marketing, I can have just like we have this, but it's logical. All this is just one switch actually. This is one switch. Can have VLAN 1, VLAN 2, VLAN 3. So it doesn't take space. I don't need to buy a lot of switches because if I'm having a 48 port switch and I don't have more than 40 bit devices, I can actually have a logical department. Instead of me buying one switch for accounting, buying one switch for IT department, buying one switch for management department. I can have one switch and I will still have this division, but to be logical. Now, these are firewalls that are shared and switches handle the VLAN infrastructure. It is easier to implement and flexible to operate, and it's even more cheaper. So I don't need to start buying switches or routers. We also have types of network segmentation. Another one is network virtualization, which is the process of combining all available network and resources and enable security professionals share the resources among the network users using a what? A single admin unit. So I can just have a single admin unit and I can manage all available network resources for workstations, computers, right? So I can do this. Okay. Also, we still have storage virtualization, which cloud environment also uses. You can just see that it just have different servers. Just like we're talking about the data center, some of them can actually be segmented, even though you're just seeing them in racks, but they can be separated and segmented logically. Then let's talk about basing host. Now, basing host is a computer system designed and configured to protect network resources from attack. Now, a basic node is only host computer. That means it's just one computer that can be addressed directly from the public network. And this can be used in large environments or large enterprises or even medium enterprises. That means that I can have a devices in which you can access the web interface. Although we still talk about proxy servers, I can reverse proxy also if I want to. So, but whatever you're accessing is this basing host. So anybody coming from the internet is accessing this base host. That means that whatever you're accessing is inside this host. You don't need to have access to the internal corporate network. Example, you're looking for the website, you will access this. Then there's a need to redirect, and we'll talk about proxy next. So you provide limited range of services such as website hosting and mail to ensure what security. So whatever the clients need to access, I'll put them on this base node. So even though you attack this base host, you're attacking nonsense. It's just the public interface. You're not actually attacking my main corporate environment. You're just attacking what you are seeing. And that's why most of the time we are doing DNS attacks. We are just seeing that particular IP addresses, which just public facing to you. Most of the time, if I do DNS lookup for Facebook now, you see just one IP, but that's not their main server. It's not even main at all. So if you are just attacking that server, you are attacking rubbish. In fact, if you have access to that server, you only have access to their web interface, maybe the login interface. That's what you will see. In fact, I will not even do any more security. So like now, just put advertisement there. So when you attack, you see my advert there, and you learn more about our advert. But if it's not properly implemented, of course, you can do privilege escalation. For one way or the other, they are connected. So some you can do okay, someone talked about micro segmentation in the comment section. Okay, thank you so much. So those are basin hosts. Now, what's the need for basin host? Okay, what are the need for basin hosts? One, you minimize the chances of penetration by intruders. But they just have access to that one host, and there's nothing much of it. Maybe just the public-facing website. Also, you create all logs which can be certified attacks or attempt to attack. So you can also make it like an honeypot, which people just access. So you can understand people's TTP from the logs that I see. In case of an attack, the basin host has as its people. That's what that will go for it. In case there's an attack, that's what they will attack. They provide an additional level of security. Now, the position of basin host, physical location, it can be placed in specially select. That's why I said that where you place it is very important also. Because sometimes you place it long way, people can do privilege escalation actually and still have access. They can do lateral movement and still have access. Or pivoting rather. So they can be placed in a specially selected server room with suitable environment controls. They can be locked. They must be set up in a locked server cabinet with proper ventilation, cooling, and backup server. Of course, it must be cool because a lot of people that what they are interfacing with. It can also be placed in the DMZ zone. We still talk about demilitarized zone that does not carry sensitive data. Avoid placing the basin host on the internal network because that's what I just said now. People can do privilege escalation. Should be located on additional layer known as the perimeter network and attach packet filtering router to it. We also have type of basin host. We have the single homed, which has only one network interface. We have the multi-home, which has at least two network interfaces. You can see somewhere here. This is what we are talking about. You can see this has two interfaces that goes up and down. That is interior and an exterior interface. But look at this, it's just one interface. Okay. They also have the DMZ zone. So this is like a computer subnetwork, which is played between the organization's private network, such as LAN, and the outer public interface, such as the internet, that acts as an additional layer of security. So DMZ zone can also be a combination of different basin nodes. Like all these can be different basin for different purposes. Example, I can have the web there, I can have the email there, I can have the files there. So you don't have to access whatever the clients need or whatever the end user needs, they can have them in the DMZ zone. But you cannot put the database here. Don't like putting your database, no. But these are like you can send the mail, yeah, right? You can send files here. If you need to upload any file, you can upload them here. So in case someone upload a malicious file, it's already affected in the DMZ zone, and can put your public facing website there. Those are DMZ zone. So like I said, you can put web servers, you can put email, you can put DNS servers there. So both internal and external network can connect to the DMZ. Hosts in the DMZ can connect to external network. Both hosts in the DMZ cannot connect to what internal network. But hosts in the DMZ cannot connect to the what internal network, but they can connect to what external network. So whatever the client needs actually can be in the DMZ network. You have different ways of creating the DMZ. We have the single firewall DMZ. We have the dual, in which you have two. You have the single and the dual firewall DMZ. Then let's talk about firewalls. What is a firewall? A firewall is a software or hardware or combination of both, which is generally used to separate a protected network from an unprotected public network. But what's the major purpose of a firewall is to filter incoming and outgoing traffic from unauthorized access. So the main purpose of firewall is filtering. Is filtering. So a firewall is either a software or hardware or combination of both, which is used to separate a protected network from what? From unprotected network. And that's why most of the time, this firewall, the rules are based on IP addresses and ports, majorly. There are different types of firewall. We have the hardware firewall and we have the software firewall. This is like your Microsoft Defender. Then you have hardware firewall like Fortinet firewall, ASA firewall from Cisco devices. Yes. So you have software firewall. As someone who that go into network security, right? This is a good aspect for you to learn about firewalls, VPN, enterprise now. I'm talking about enterprise firewalls, which is very, very important. So how to configure enterprise firewall. So we have host-based firewall and network-based firewall. For host-based firewall, these are used for a particular system. Host, when I'm talking about host, it's a particular device, right? But when I'm talking about network, like centralized, is used to filter inbound or outbound traffic from internal line, and it is a hardware-based firewall. While host-based are software firewalls. We have window firewall, of course. You can go to your Windows and look at the firewall on your Windows and see different rules. You can create rules. Then you can say that okay, this person can ping me on ICMP, they might not be able to ping me. They can define the IP addresses that can have access to, or the ones that can have access to you. Then we have the hardware firewall. We have the Cisco, we have the PFSet, we have the NetGear, we have the D-Link, we have the Sonic Wall firewall. But most of the time in Nigeria, we use more of Fortinet firewalls. So you see Fortinet, you see Huawei, you see, yes, ASA firewall. There are different firewall technologies. We have the packet filtering firewall. Now for packet filtering, that means the filter based on packets. I remember, okay, let me also talk about the OSI layer again. Yes, please remind me. Let me go to that OSI layer again and talk about protocol data units. Let me go to back our, I will call the protocol the protocol data unit. Sorry about my handwriting. So this is what we call PDUs. And we are going to be talking about the PDUs for each OSI layer. And I'm using that our card we were talking about yesterday. So let's start. We have the application layer. We have the presentation layer. We have the section layer. We have the transport layer. We have the network layer. We have the data link layer. And we'll also have the physical layer. Okay, let me use different colors so we are going to understand it very well. Now, let's say I'm sending my iMessage right from WhatsApp to a friend in the US. What are the PDUs? Now, for application layer, my I is still my I. I've not added any address to it. So my I is still my I. That means I still have my data, which is my data. Call it data. Also, my car is still my car. They've not added anything to my car. So you should have my car here from DHL. Also at the presentation layer, I still have my car. And also I still have my iMessage. It's still my iMessage. Or even though you are doing encryption and compression, it's still my iMessage. I still have data. The PDU is still data. Although also at the session layer, the PDU is also still data. That means I still have my iMessage. I've not added anything to it, and I still have my car. And I still have my car. Please give me a minute. All right. Then at the transportation layer, I start adding information to it. Right? You start adding information to it. Then at the transport layer now, I need to add some information to my high. Then these are the information I have to my high. This is my high message. Then we have the source port and the destination port. We have the source port, we have the destination port. So how does this link also to my car? So for my car, I am saying that this car is leaving Lagos port, and is going to Miami port in the US. It's going to Miami port in the US, and this is my car. I've started adding address information to my car. So also for data, I'm saying that, okay, it's going from port, I can use any register port, maybe 1000, going to port 80, using HTTP, and this is my high message. Now, the PDU for this is what we call a segment. The PDU, that's the protocol data unit at the transport layer, is what we call a segment. Now, moving to our network layer, I'm adding more information now to my iMessage. So I'm saying that what is the source IP? I'm adding source IP. What is the destination IP? Then what we have before, that's the source port, destination port, and my high message. So it's the same thing as adding source port, destination port, and also adding segment to it. So like I'm adding source port and destination port to my segments. And also, how does this look for my card I'm sending? So for my card, it's going to look like this. So I'll say that this card is coming from Nigeria. That's like the source IP. Is going to US. That's like the destination IP. Then it's coming from Lagos port. Is going to Miami port. Then my car. This is what we call a packet. So the PDU at the network layer is what we call a packet. Now, at the data link layer, we had more information. Then I said that what is the source MAC address? The destination MAC address. Now, what I have before, I can write all these as packets. I can also split it. It's like I'm adding source and destination MAC address to a packet, right? But let me write it in full. We have the source IP. We have the destination IP. We have the source port. We have the destination port. And we have our high message. Also for our car, how does it look like? So the car is being sent from Samuel, that like your source MAC address, which is unique, is going to Glory. So Samuel is sending Glory a car, maybe GLE car. It's coming from Nigeria, like your source IP. The destination IP is US. Then it's coming from Lagos Port. It's going to Miami Port. And we have our car. Now, this is what we call a frame, but it did not complete yet. Now, yesterday, I said error correction happens at the transport layer. But error detection happens at the data link layer through these two means. We have the CRC or the FCS. Now, what does this two mean? CRC is what we call cyclic redundancy check. And FCS is what we call frame check sequence. Frame check sequence. Now I can see that I'm putting it at the back of our high message, the same thing at the back of our car. Now, what does this do? This help you with error detection. So error detection happens at the data link layer, while error correction happens at the transport layer with the help of what? TCP. We talked about that yesterday. So all this is what we call a frame. So all this is what we call a frame. So the PDU at the data link layer is what we call a frame. Then from physical layer, of course, is our binary. So all this nonsense we convert to 0 and 1. You can see it just like a normal delivery system. Now, the process of adding all this address information is what we call encapsulation. The process of adding source IP, destination IP is what we call encapsulation. And this happens from the sender, right? Now, for the receiver, of course, they have to remove off this guy here. Let's say this is the receiver, which is from the physical back to application. The process of removing all the source IP, destination IP is what we call decapsulation. Decapsulation. Don't worry, by next week, we have practical sessions when we are doing our EHE, but this is just for you to understand concepts. So I implore you to be very early by next week, 10 a.m. on Saturday, 2 p.m. on Sunday. Okay. Any question before I move on? Do we understand PDUs, encapsulation, and decapsulation? If you don't understand, you can kindly raise your hand so I'll know where the problem is. Okay, that's good. That means we all understand that. Okay, so when I'm talking about packet filtering now, you should know that when I'm talking about packet filtering, I'm talking at the transport layer, right? Now, packet filtering happens at the transport layer, even though packets are the network layer, but the filtering is happening because it has to do with ports. It doesn't really filter based on packet. It filters based on IP and ports. And which one has IP and ports? Of course, the transport layer. No, the packet rather has IP and port, but this filtering is happening at the what? Transport layer. Then we have the stateful multi-layer inspection. And this is one of the best actually, stateful, because it was from the network layer tried to the application layer. You can see this is stateful multi-layer inspection. And let me go to, okay, let me talk about it one by one. So I won't just summarize them for you. Now, packet switching firewall work at the network level of the OSI layer, right? Because it has the IP and the port. But under here, we put it under the transport layer. Yeah, so it depends sending or receiving. But actually, like I said, because it has both the IP and the port, right? So the major work is done at the network layer. Just like you have the packet. That's why I thought to PDUs, because it can be a little confusing. So, right. So they work at the network level of the OSI layer or the IP layer of the TCP IP. Now, based on the control you are using, right, we determine maybe you are using IP or you are using both the IP or the port. Now, if you are using standard access control, it does only from the source IP. But if we are being extended, we come from the source, the person sending it, and the receiver, and also based on protocols. Now, they're actually part of a router, that is packet filtering. So most of these routers support packet filtering. Most of Cisco routers, Huawei routers, Juniper routers, they support your packet filtering. So some of the times, we are just doing packet filtering. You actually need to buy a firewall. But of course, firewalls are needed. They have more extended function, like on its own. But some people use router, part of router as a function, majorly because of access control list. A router also support access control list. So some also can use that for packet filtering. So in a packet filtering firewall, each packet is compared to a set of criteria. That I just said is like access control. There are access control lists before it is forwarded. Okay, so you have the circuit level gateway. So this work at the session layer of the OSI model. So circuit level gateway work at the session layer of the OSI model. Also the TCP layer of TCP IP. So what does circuit layer do? They monitor the TCP handshake between packets to determine whether it is a requested section. Gilbert, please go ahead. Let me allow Mike. Okay, Gilbert, please go ahead.
Okay, Mr. Timmy, please, I don't understand. You said initially that the transport layer is the error correction happens. Then you said
Error
that the
detect, the
network,
error correction, that's correct.
yes. Then the network you said is also called the packet. Then all of a sudden you said the packet filtering also happens in the transport layer. So from that packet filtering down, I don't even, this last explanation you just did, like I just got lost. I don't even understand what's going on there. The explanation, like I was just trying to figure out the other one before you brought up this packet filtering this is, so I don't understand that last part, the last explanation before you move to this circuit level gateway rather.
Okay, then let me make it complex for you. So do you understand when I was talking about PDUs, packet data unit? Our protocol data
Yeah,
unit, PDUs.
I didn't understand the entire thing. I understood from the transportation down to the physical layer, but from the application layer down to the session, like I didn't really understand what was going on there, the explanation and all.
I'm talking
But
about this. Can you see my screen?
yes, these
Did you
ones, like
understand this?
not entirely, not
Well,
entirely.
I was asking that, was there any question? And I didn't see any hands raised. Okay, now I'm saying that, were you in yesterday's class when we were talking about OSI layer, Gilbert?
No, I wasn't in yesterday's class.
Oh, that's one of the reasons. Please go back and learn about OSI layer, but let's make it explanatory again. Now, at the application layer, example, we are sending a iMessage, right? Now, at the application layer, the iMessage is still an iMessage, so it's still data. right? That message is still data. At the presentation layer, it's still data also. Even though you are doing encryption or compression, it's still that iMessage. If we get to the session layer talks about dialogue, right? It's still your iMessage. So that's why I say that application, presentation, and session, we call them upper layers because it doesn't have to do with transportation at all. Example, we want to say a car from Nigeria to US, right? It's still at DHL, at this application layer, you are still at DHL. Presentation layer, your car is still at DHL. At the session layer too, your car is still at DHL. But at the transport layer now, you are taking it to a port, right? Maybe seaport or airport. That means you are saying that it's coming from Lagos port to it's going to Miami port and you have your car. I said this three information, you adding source port and destination port is what we call a segment. Then I went to packet filtering and I said that packet work, I think the major issue where you're having, I first said that it works at the transport layer. Later I moved it towards the network layer. Yes, I understand. Now the packet layer at the rather the network layer, I said, example, the car now is coming from Nigeria, is going to US. That's like the source IP and destination IP. You can see that I'm adding more information. Do you understand that, Gilbert?
Yes, I understand.
Good. Now it's coming from Lagos port to Miami port, and these are Canada. This information of having IP, that means source IP and destination IP, and having ports is what we call a packet. So if I'm saying packet filtering now for this level, it works at the network layer. So forget when I said it works at the transport layer. Now for this level, it works at the network layer because it deals with source IP and ports. Is that correct?
Yes, very correct.
Yes, that means you are filtering on who is sending a message to you. And that's why sometimes you are browsing, you see that you might not be able to browse from US websites until you use a VPN because they make a packet filtering or access control that, okay, any IP from this location, don't accept it. Then see that you don't have access to this website or it will not go until you use a VPN. That means you're using a VPN to change your location. And sometimes you notice that some places that if you are trying to use FTP, it will not work because they've segmented it based on port 21. That means you cannot communicate based on that port. But it can only communicate based on HTTPS. That means you can only communicate based on web. That's what packet filtering does. It segments, that means it filters based on where is the packet coming from and what kind of service is it using. So there are some websites or some industry that they don't allow HTTP at all, or they don't allow FTP. That means I filtered that information based on the location it's coming from, which is logical IP address, or the service, which is the port that they can use. Do you understand that, Gilbert?
Yes, I do.
All right, then we have the frame where it talks about the MAC address. That means the unique device that I'm using to send, just like IMEI. So where you have the source marker, that one I'm using someone's name now because the name might be unique to that person. I'm saying that, okay, I'm sending from Samuel to Glory, right? Then it's coming from Nigeria to US, just like the way DHL be filling those information on the parcel, which is the car. Then I talk about the error detection. I said error detection happens at the data link, but error correction, we talked about how error correction works yesterday. But how does the receiver know that there's a error problem? How does it know about the correction? Because these FCS and CLC, they are binaries, they are mathematical formulation, which I'm not going to. So once there's a so this talks about integrity actually. So once there's a tampering with the data, it will change at the destination. So that means there's a problem with that data and to correct it back when it gets to the what? Transport layer. And I said that the PDU for data link is what we call frame. Then all this will convert to binary 0 and 1, maybe through electromagnetic wave, through your cables or voltage, or it converts to light, right? Which are also convert to 0 and 1, light rays, and also maybe through radio waves, which is also binary. Then it gets to the other side. When I talk about encapsulation and decapsulation. So let me rephrase my words. So let me tell you that the packet filtering works at the what? Network layer, not at transport layer. So I'm rephrasing it now that packet filtering works at the network layer because the filtering based on what? IP and ports. So just like you have there, it works at the what? Network layer of the OSI model. Does that make sense, Gilbert?
Yes, it does. Thank you very much.
All right. You are also talking about the circuit level gateway, which I'm talking about its section layer. So this works at the section layer where it monitors the TCP handshake and the section rules. So that means the section is initiated by the computer or whatever device, it cuts it off. So one of the advantages of circuit layer, it hides data of the private network. It does not filter individual network. It filters based on section. Does not require a separate proxy server for each application and is easy to implement. But one disadvantage that it cannot scan active content and can only handle TCP connection, cannot handle UDP connection because you have to look for a section that's TCP three-way handshake. So it looks at section, that's the dialoguing before you can filter packets. They have the application level. This is very, very common. So application level monitors your post request and your get request, right? So application level gateway can be configured to be a web proxy also, which will not allow FCP, Gopher, Telnet, SSH, or whatever it is, or other traffic through. So those are the application layer. And also some of the what about web application firewall? Yes, your WAF also, that's the application layer. Example is like Cloudflare, that was at the application layer, yes. So that's the application level gateway. So they deal only with HTTP, HTTPS, and application level protocols. They have the stateful, and this is one of the best, right? Stateful combines the other aspects we've talked about. So it filters whether the section, the packet, or the application layer. So the combination of those three, that's what stateful is. The combination of application layer firewall, combination of circuit layer firewall, combination of what? Packet filtering. So they are expensive, that's just the only problem. They are expensive and require competent personnel to administer the device. That means you need a good network security admin to be able to work and configure the firewall. So it can be complex sometimes. For some people that want to diverge into that or network defense, right, you might need to understand firewalls. Palo Alto, ASA firewall, PFSense, and Fortinet. They have the application proxy. These ones are the proxy server and filters connection for specific services. Now, a filter connection based on services and protocol. For example, an FCP proxy will only allow FCP traffic to pass through, while other services and protocol will be blocked. That's application. So they are based on specific services. Those are application proxy. Then we have the network address translation. Okay, let me also talk about reverse proxy. Is it specified in this book so that I can also let you understand that? Okay, it's not. So those are part of the advantages. I might also go out of this level once in a while so that you have more understanding. We also have reverse proxy, which is very common in large enterprises. That means that when you are only connected to a device, so this is what it means. Example, Facebook. So some of them also have load balancers in between, LB, LB. So when I'm talking about LB, I'm talking about load balancers. And you have the servers here. Then let's say this is the Facebook proxy server. So it can be transparent or non-transparent. So most of us will just access this Facebook. This is the only IP we know. Then this Facebook will do a reverse proxy and redirect the traffic to these load balancers, then to the servers. So most people don't know about these internal IPs or the load balancers IPs. So the only IP they know is just like the basin host. Are you following? But there is difference that the basin host has the information. But this proxy server only store logs. It doesn't have the information. But to redirect you, you just like a direction to the main servers. But you only see this as an interface. But they will redirect to the main IPs. And probably majorly to the load balancer so that you not crash the servers. They have the network address translation. We talked about yesterday. So this guy converts internal addresses to external traffic. That means from private to public. I think that private IP cannot go to the internet, right? But public IP is one that goes to the internet. So your ISP uses that to convert your private IP to what? To public IP. So it works also with a router. Where's my mouse? Okay. So it also works with a router, right? So it's the same as packet filtering does, but the NAT will also modify the packets the router sends at the same time. So it has the ability to change the address of the packet and make it appear to have arrived from a valid IP. So it limits the number of public IP addresses an organization can use. Example is like NAT overload, or we have the path. So just like I was showing you that day, a lot of you can be using just one public IP addresses to the internet, but they can be separated based on port numbers. We have pairs one-to-one, that is 30. That means I can have one private to public, but that is very expensive because public, you can't just get a public IP address. It's not that easy. The way MTN is, they can have just maybe /24 of public, one public. It might not even be up to that. It might be /27 of a public IP address. That means they can have like 15, 20 public IP address or 5, 7, or 6, depending on their core layer routers. Then most of us using just one public IP address, but can be separated based on different ports when we go to the internet. Now look at this guy here. We have this internal IP. Then, but when they get to the router, I can see that it converts to this one public IP address, which is recognized on the internet. And you are not the owner of this public. This public is for your ISP. It's for your internet service provider. Okay. Then VPNs. VPNs. A lot of people don't understand the technology of VPNs. But I also only mention a few technology because it might be complex for a lot of people over here. But I will just explain in layman language as much as possible. And there's always a myth that most of you, if you use all these software-based VPN, example, Norton, and so on and so forth, you believe that, I'm entirely safe on the internet. It doesn't work like that. The fact is that most of you don't even know that when you go to these VPNs, they also have access to information. And your VPN works after your ISP. But I'll talk about the hardware VPNs also. What are the software VPNs you are using? This is you. This is you. After you is your ISP. After your ISP is now your VPN. Then after this guy is now whatever country or whatever, maybe let's say US website. And some of these VPN, they work as proxy. That means proxy work at the application layer. VPN is meant to work at the what? Network layer. That means if I'm using proxy on a server, it might not affect, example, I'm using proxy on Chrome, it should not affect Edge. That means only affect that application that I'm using. But if I'm using a VPN, it affects every packet leaving my device. But sometimes, most of the VPN you guys use, example, if I use a VPN here and there's a connection and I'm going to this website, if there's a breach or latency in my network, majorly of the time, my browser is still in section with this website. So by the time my network is restored, this VPN does not come on immediately. Which by on a normal scenario like all these 911 and VPN, it will block the connection until this VPN comes on. But most of your VPNs, it doesn't block. Then you go directly to this website. And of course, as a SOC analyst or a defense person, you can't be in Nigeria in 1 minute and be in US in another 5 minutes. You are not a witch now. So I know that something is wrong. And it will be part of my case study. You can't be in one location. I'll look at the distance with location. So your location cannot be showing me US in 1 minute. Then because you didn't know that there was a latency. Otherwise, that most of these they say that no, network is very good in the night. So I prefer to work in the night because they feel that there's no latency based on the kind of VPN they're using. Then, but they don't know the technology behind it. I see that they log you out of that website. I was now, what is happening? Network. It's not network. It's because I'm seeing your IP in US. In another 5 minutes, I'm saying Nigeria. I know that no, something is wrong. So the system blocks you out immediately. But the take out says that you can't run away from this guy here. Now we now have laws. That when we talk about policies, right? They are not meant to disclose your privacy, your private information. Now you understand why that compliance is very important. Without a court order, you are not meant to do that. And that's why we say that wiretapping is a crime. Most of these things is a crime. Example, most of you watch most of these movies. Even though they know that this guy is a criminal, if there's no evidence, we call them admissible evidence in court. If there's no evidence, you just know. Because when you go to court, you are meant to tender the way you got that information, especially when it comes to security. Well, it's not common here in our court. But over there, it's very important. Imagine not telling the judge that, no, I know he's a criminal, I wiretap his phone. If I didn't force do your case, even as you are doing the right thing, you feel they are doing the right thing before they do the case of the criminal. Because the criminal still has the right to the private information. The only thing that gives you access to that is only a court order. The same thing with tracking that people don't know. When I was also at this force, we also do that, but it's wrong actually. A court order is very, and we know based on different career level or security level, we see that it's majorly people at the top. We see that most of them they do it the right way, court tracking or whatever it is. It's only DSS that has the right, based on their state security at any point in time to track anybody. It is a crime. And that's why most of these compliance are there, GDPR and so on and so forth. So most of these VPN, even though they have information, they can't just disclose it out unless there's a court order. But you know that all these things, there are still politics in it. So you should have them in mind. Even though depending on power and a lot of things like that, which I'm not going to. Okay. So a VPN is a private network constructed using public networks such as internet. So it's just like having a VPN, like having a private network on a public network. Having a private network on the internet, which is secure. It's used for secure transmission of sensitive information over an untrusted network using encapsulation and encryption. We've talked about encapsulation before. So it established a virtual point-to-point education through the use of dedicated connection. Now, because these are expensive, most of these criminals or hackers, most of them have a private network, sometimes 3D networks. Just like we have Nitel in those days. Nitel is very secure, but the problem is that it's very slow and expensive. But it's still one of the most secure systems we ever had. That circuit architecture, because it's not easy to snip. And that's why I think that most of these top presidents use all these analog systems. Because in that Nitel, you can't snip the network, you can't snip packet, the circuit, you can't snip. The only way you can use is to cut that wire. But the problem is that let's say Nitel is in Abuja and I'm in Lagos, I need to connect my wire from Lagos to Abuja. That's the only problem. but it was safer. But now we're using packet architecture. That means that with this mask, anybody can use that channel. So this how circle fitting was like Nitel. It's like I'm traveling from Lagos to Ibadan. Once I start my car, no other person can use that channel. But with packet filtering, what's that? Now I can see that that road can be used by anybody, but everybody know where they are going. That's why you have all this information: source IP, destination IP, source MAC address, because they now have address information. Before it was just a dedicated line. That means everybody has their own dedicated line. But of course, it's expensive and it's not visible, right? Only to major people that need it. We call it dedicated lines. So now we have what we call masks that you see around here. So a lot of people can be using the same mask, but they have different address on their information. That means those packets know where they are going to. Just like I'm now going from Lagos to Ibadan now, anybody can use that road called Lagos to Ibadan, but everybody know where they are going. So a lot of cars can use that road because they have the address information with them. But a VPN now gives that same privilege like Nitel, but now on a public network. Like I'm having that Nitel now on packet filtering. That's what I mean. Or rather packet architecture. Then the computing device running on VPN software can only access the VPN, example like Fortinet, Cisco, and so on and so forth. What are the advantages of VPN? VPN hides all the traffic that flows through it. It ensures encryption and protects data from snooping. It provides remote access for protocols while also defending outside network. Like most of the people we consult for, one of the things we tell them is that one of the way to gain one of the front door or your front door into your industry should be a VPN. That should be your front door, not SSH, not Telnet. I gave assignment that was port numbers and their function. Who can tell me the function of Telnet and the difference between Telnet and SSH? What's the also function of SSH? Who can tell me? Telnet and SSH. What is Telnet? What is SSH? What is the difference between Telnet and SSH? And also RDP. So that's the way I'll be asking for the assignment to just speak for me. Okay, Ridwan, please go ahead. Let me allow your mic. Okay. Ridwan, you can talk now.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, please go ahead, Ridwan.
Okay, so we use Telnet to log in into a device remotely, but it's not secure because every conversation there is not encrypted, it's plain. So that's where SSH comes in, secure shell. So we use SSH to replace Telnet to log into a device or a target host remotely, securely.
Okay, thank you. Ridwan, do you have a contribution to that? Ahmad, sorry. Ahmad Sultan. You can meet your mic if you have a contribution to that. Ahmad Sultan. Okay. Thank you. So that is correct. Most of them are for remote access. That means I can do a conversion remotely as like a remote access, just the same way with RDP. But the problem is that most of them are not as secured as VPN. Now, SSH even depends on the encryption key, right? Can still brute force it using Hydra. But VPN should be the front door to any organization. So I'll give you a tip of consulting now. Most of the time we do some testing on them. So those are one of the things we have, right? So one of the best ways to be the front door or for your remote users is a VPN. Now, as a VPN runs on a public network, the user remains vulnerable to an attack on the destination network. They have the next generation firewall. Now, this is a new one. This is a third generation firewall that moves beyond port and protocol inspection. It goes to deep. One of the major things about new generation firewall, right, is greater than the stateful firewall. It's about deep packet inspection, DPI. That's one of the major benefits of next generation firewall. So what are the typical next generation firewall is DPI, like I said before, encrypted traffic inspection. Now, quality of service also very important. I talk about priorities. We have threat intelligence integration inside it. We have integrated intrusion prevention system. So we have IDS included into it. We have advanced threat protection. We have application control, and we also have antivirus inspection. Like we have different combination of other protective measures inside one device. So like I'm having not all in one, like a simple version of all in one or all different capabilities. So it works from layer 3 to layer 4 and also expands to layer 7, just like the stateful firewall. So what are the firewall capability? Of course, it prevents network scanning, control traffic, perform user authentication, filter packets, traffic logging, network address translation, and prevent malware attacks. Now, also, there are also limitations, right? Now, a firewall does not prevent the network from backdoor attacks because most of them filter based on ports and IP addresses. But of course, the new generation firewall helps with that. A firewall does not protect the network from inside attacks, and that can be worse than that can happen to any company. Now, imagine that the insider attack is now admin again, or a network admin, or a cybersecurity professional. Is now your insider attack. That's the end. Now, a firewall cannot do anything if the network design and configuration is faulty. Now, when I talk about knowledge gap, most of the time is a major problem in the industry. A major problem. Because most of the time, those are the expenses we receive that you want to apply for a job and they are asking the whole department in you. They are saying that, okay, you should know about cloud, you should know, you should be a stock analyst, you should have this, you should have CISSP, you should have CA, you should have this, you should have that. And majorly, the person will not be good in anything. And that's why we have people that don't specialize in one thing. And it's a major crisis in the IT department, not even only cybersecurity. And that's why in security now, we are encouraging our own personal HR. So they know the main requirement needed for each staff. So you are not combining a lot of things because security itself is wide. So those are also things we are counseling people on. Even though when we go out and speak to clients, those are one of the things we tell them. Your HR, if you're a security company, your HR counsel comes to us and we enlighten them. If there was one I was watching online, the guy applied for a job in the company, he was the head of that department, and the HR didn't even pick him. Imagine. We were looking for a particular skill, and they didn't pick him because of laziness. So majorly, most of this knowledge gap or skills gap is because a lot of people learn a lot of things and they're not specialized in one technology. They're not specialized. So there's no how they want to configure that technology properly because they're not specialized in it. Even though they understand the concepts, but because that they've learned a lot of things, one learn about Oracle, they learn about C, they learn about these different databases. It might not be specialized in one. Someone learn about Cisco, went to Fortinet, went to Juniper, is too much. It's too much. But if they allow people to be specialized in one thing, and sometimes because of financing cost, and so most of you have seen these experiences, be like, I'm just entry level now. Why are they asking me for 10 years experience? Why are they doing this? Why are they doing that? All those things will start changing because it also affects a lot of things. And one of the issues I've seen in different companies we work with, right, is misconfigurations. In fact, by the time you are doing ethical hacking, most of those flaws that we will be exploiting, see that most of them are due to misconfiguration. They are due to misconfiguration. All right. Now, a firewall is not an alternative to antivirus or anti-malware. So most of them cannot even detect ransomware. A firewall does not prevent new viruses. A firewall cannot prevent social engineering threats. A firewall does not prevent password misuse. A firewall does not block attack from higher level of protocol stack. Also, firewall implementation is very important. Where do you want to place the firewall? And that's when we talk about compliance and controls. You can see where controls are very important. Where do you place your firewall? All these things are inside your control, your policies, and your guidelines. Because if you don't get the architecture right, there will be a lot of flaws. In fact, they can be unauthorized assets easily. Because sometimes for large enterprises, it can be very complex. So most of the time when I'm talking about this, you don't look at a large organization like MTN, look at a large organization like Meta, so that you can compare what I'm saying to you, not just small businesses. Because if you are still pushing your mind to small business, you might not get the major comprehension of what I'm trying to tell you. So anytime I talk about this technology, always look at large enterprises so that I can understand how complex, how important policies are. And a single mistake can cause the downfall of the whole organization. That can cause an unauthorized asset or a breach in the organization. So you have to plan for it. You can see you must plan the positioning in advance, and also you must look at scalability in case you have to scale your infrastructures. You must think also of the what of where to place your firewall. You don't just place and configure it. That's why sometimes configuration can be complex. Also, some people here have worked with access list. I know that once you make a mistake in access list, you have to write it all over again. But there's permit or there's deny all at the end of the day. So we've seen a major enterprise that does one access list mistake cause a whole problem, a disruption of service for the whole day. Nobody could access the internet for the whole day because of a firewall misconfiguration. Also, configuring, like I said, you have to test it. You have to deploy, you manage and maintain. And that's why you cannot overemphasize policies. But it's not just about the technical ability to configure. Policies will make sure that they are effective. So that efficiency is very important. And that's why people follow compliance step by step procedure to do effect. And that's why people also, just like you have schools that does NUC approve them based on what they have? Is it visible? Is it not visible? And that's why also at GRC, you must understand what technical abilities so that your policy can be visible. Now, there was a time Twitter was attacked. I think the name was said, but by a very short time. What was the problem? Some of the public-facing servers were not put under Cloudflare. That was just a simple problem. And people attacked it. A particular group of attackers attacked it just because of one mistake. About 2 servers that are public-facing were not put behind the firewall. I don't know the reason. There might be, like I told you, it might be a policy problem, a lot of ignorance, and a lot of things like that. As high as Twitter is X, those kind of issues, they were still affected by it. Now imagine small businesses. Okay. Regarding about this, okay, let's talk about IDS and IPS. Now, IDS and IPS is a network security appliance that inspects all inbound and outbound network traffic for suspicious patterns that might indicate a network or system security breach. Now, there's a difference between firewall and IDS or IPS. There's a difference between a firewall and a difference between, I'll put this under one category, IDS and IP. I'll just put them under one category. Now, a firewall, example, let's say you are coming to Nigeria. I guess in it. Now, a firewall before filter, this one based on filtering. A filter. This one work based on patterns. I'll use this analogy to explain. This is Nigerian airports. So before Nigerians can make a policy that, okay, only Ghanaians are allowed to enter Nigeria. Ghana, Ivory Coast are allowed. Egypt is allowed. But Togo is not allowed to enter. So the firewall will first work on this and see that, okay, who is allowed into the network? That means who has the access to enter into Nigeria. That's why firewalls comes first. So they filter based on these rules. Who is allowed? Okay, if you see Ghanaians, is allowed Ghanaians to enter. If you see Ivory Coast, it allows Ivory Coast to enter. So let me use like mark here. But if it sees, let's say Togo now, if Togo is coming in, it blocks Togo based on that rule. So Togo cannot come in. That's what firewall does. They filter based on IP and port, right? But this is where IDS and IPS now do their own work. So after Ghanaians have entered, let's say Ghana have entered, Ivory Coast has entered. Then they now check the Ghanaians and the Ivory Coast people that okay, the Ghanaians that are entering, are they normal? Do they have malaria? Do they have coronavirus? Do they have HIV? That's where IDS and IPS starts working. That means what is the behavior of the packet? Do they work like virus? Do they work like ransomware based on behavioral patterns? So after the firewalls are filtered, then the IDS work based on patterns. What is the pattern? What is the behavior of that packet? So even though Nigeria allows Ghana and Ivory Coast to enter, then these guys can, okay, let us take their brain. Are they normal? The Ghanaians entering, are they normal people? Do they have score or not? The Ivory Coast people coming, do they have HIV? Do they have coronavirus? Do we need to isolate them and stuff like that? That's where IDS and IPS comes in. So those are the major difference between firewall and IDS and IPS as a segment. Okay, if found, but the difference between IDS and IPS now is that IDS only what detects and alert the admin, but IPS go further to what to prevent. Even though they both work based on behavioral pattern. But the difference between IDS and IPS, that IDS is passive. You only detect and tell the admin that come on, there's a problem, anything like give to it. But IPS go further to prevent it. It detects and prevents. So you can see how IDS works. There's a signature comparison. As we talk how they are made, signature based, anomaly based, and protocol based. Then they check that anomaly detection work, say full protocol analysis, then they match that, okay, does it match any of this problem? Then before they have access to the enterprise network. Okay, let me talk about them. Signature anomaly detection. So this is how signature detection works of IDS. It's like I'm having a server, I'm having a database that contains malaria. Of course, if you go to the hospital, how do they know that someone has malaria? They test your blood now because it has a particular pattern that shows that okay, these are malaria works made from the system, from the symptoms, right? Also, how do you know that this person has typhoid? It's from the symptoms and behavioral what pattern. For signature detection, it's like I'm having malaria, typhoid in that database, and let's say HIV. God forbid, nobody will have this. But so if anybody is coming, it will check for all these signatures, right, to see if it matches any one of them. If it doesn't match it, then it give what? Access. But if any traffic is coming, and it sees that it checks it against all the signatures, malaria, typhoid, and it sees that it matches any of those patterns, then it blocks it and tell you that come on, this packet that is coming, this person that is coming has malaria. That's signature detection. So it has a database of all these malwares. But the problem of this guy is that if it's not updated, let's say coronavirus is coming in now, someone that has corona is coming in, and he doesn't have corona in his database, it will allow that person in like a normal traffic because it does not have it in his database. So that person with corona will have access to the network because corona is not in his database. That's the problem of signature detection. So that means someone that is signature detection idea must always update that database to be able to capture the latest malwares. But anomaly detection, now, the second way IDS works is anomaly detection. Now, this guy works based on only what normal and abnormal traffic. That means this guy knows only normal traffic. And majorly, these guys are built with machine learning. That means they understand normal traffic. So that means if coronavirus is coming now and this guy does not know it or is not in his database, of course, anything that is abnormal, even though it does not know it's coronavirus, as far as a malware and it's not normal, you tell that come admin, there's a problem. I feel that this traffic is coming, it is not normal because I only know normal traffic. Even though I don't know that his name is coronavirus, but I know that what this traffic that is coming, it is not normal. So they work just like 0 and 1. That means they only know what normal traffic. Anything that is not normal is 0. That means it's abnormal traffic. That is abnormality detection. Anomaly detection. But the problem is that there's a lot of false positives because some traffic can actually be normal, but they look abnormal because of different AI models or machine learning models used to train that normal traffic. And of course, you need more data to be able to train normal traffic. That's the problem of this anomaly detection. But most people combine both signature detection and anomaly detection together. So in case you can't tell you where the problem is, example, if coronavirus is coming now, if this signature cannot detect it, of course, anomaly will just tell you that form is abnormal. But of course, you can always update this guy here for your signature. So it's advisable to use hybrid. That means use both signature and abnormality detection. So if signature is not updated, abnormally can tell you that there's a problem. And also, if this anomaly detection can be correlated or can be corrected using signature, so it can reduce false positive on it. So even though it's looking like that number, no, it doesn't look like this. It's not in our database. We look at it and be able to solve the problem as fast as possible. So those are two ways IDS work. Okay. So let's talk about honeypots. Now, honeypots allow professionals to defend against attackers that a firewall cannot even prevent. So what honeypot does is that it helps to see TTPs, right? That's starting techniques and procedures of attackers. So a honeypot is an information system so that is especially set up to attract and trap people who attempt to penetrate an organization's network. So he has no authorized activity and does not have any production value. That was not there to say. So it's not really compulsory because it does not have any production value. But some people use it as a way of threat intelligence to understand techniques, tactics, and procedures of different attackers, to know why they even want to attack us, and they see the new methodology that they are using. So honeypots can log port access, monitor an attacker's keystroke to see how they work. And we have different types of honeypots, right? Now you can see this in your assessment. Low interaction, that means it simulates only a limited number of services. That is a low interaction honeypot. Of course, like I said, honeypot is used to lure attackers. Also, there will be a segment that will talk about honeypot from the attacker's perspective when I'm talking about wireless attack. But now we are taking this honeypot from the defense aspect. So by the time we get to the attack aspect, I'm talking about honeypots. Of course, attackers who can use honeypot to lure a lot of people, like people that have free Wi-Fi. It's fake. They are trying to lure you. That's another way of honeypot from the attacker's perspective. They have the medium interaction honeypot. This simulates a real operating system. It looks real. A real operating system. We have the high interaction honeypot. This simulates all services. It simulates all the services. And we have the pure honeypot that emulate the real production network. So it looks exactly like a production network. And we have the production honeypot and the research also honeypot. Okay. So we have the CM, which is Security Incident and Event Manager. Today, organizations need to protect their IT assets from data breaches due to internal and external threats. So to meet strict compliance requirements, you can see that I always talk about compliance. And there's a lot of fine if you don't meet compliance requirements and you lose a lot of customer trust. Example, most of you don't even check all these things. You know that some of these compliance, if there's a breach in your system, they are meant to tell the whoever client that they have or the end user they buy a breach within 24 hours. And most of the time, we go to most of these, especially in Nigeria, they publish those things, but most of you don't even know. But the only way this compliance does not say is how to publish it, but you must always publish when there's a breach so that you inform your clients or your end users. But they can try to put it on maybe Punch newspaper. Punch is even too good. They can use any of these newspaper that is not even too popular. It's PR. Yes, we have cybersecurity PR. In fact, in a big relationship, must have public relation officer, so they know how to disclose information. And most of you never know that. If I tell you that some of these banks, which are not mentioned, that have been attacked before, don't be like, when, never at the batch, but I'm using this bank. Because most of you, if you hear query that, something happened to your bank, most of you immediately are moving your money. You even wait twice. My 2,000 naira must not miss. So you be after, it must not too much happen to my 5,000 naira. Exactly. So it's easy to lose customer trust in some kind of industry. So some of them actually publish it because it's part of the compliance requirement. But it's not just exposed, it's PR, because most of this compliance does not tell you the way you should publish it, but you must publish it and tell your client. The one of the time you come and sue them, they tell that I will publish it now. I'll be like, when? I didn't see it. Well, that's your business. So that's our PR. Okay. So to meet strict compliance requirements and for threat identification and mitigation, organization must audit the information passing through their enterprise network. So security incident and event management, I used to manage and store a huge collection of data, yes, because data can be very overwhelming. Trust me, overwhelming in a day. And that's why you see that SOC is 24/7. So if you want to work in the different aspect as a SOC analyst, or you work based on shift, it's different from a pen tester. So those are things we'll be advising you also based on age, based on intellectuals, when you come for further courses. We also counsel you on career path. And that's why we are the best in this thing. Because we understand industrial aspect, we understand industrial needs, and we look how who you are. We have a normal conversation with you and tell you the best aspect for you to go. And also we streamline it to your training. So some of you also, if you are doubting, you can go to our website and see some of our clients. You go to somebody that, so these guys are working with this client. Yes, we are working with them. Yes, we are working with them. Okay. So also for a SEM to perform real-time monitoring and detection of security events, forensic and post-incident analysis, auditing, IT security, and regulatory compliance reporting. But if you say about CMT, that also you can implement threat intelligence with it. So as you are also reactive, you are proactive with it. So and also forensics, right? Now forensics is another interesting aspect. Very, very interesting. Very, very interesting. Now, CM provide real-time SOC, that's Security Operational Center. Now, some of you have never seen one before. Let me show you how one looks like. So that's why I was talking about that estate. Some of those estates that provide network. If you provide that kind of information, you should also have a SOC operational center. If I go to foreign country, you see that most of these big estates, they have like a mini network admin, like a small kiosk that they monitor traffic 24/7. Some of you guys see it in movies. And I watched that, well, one day I decided to check some of them's policy. I noticed that they only sell speak to you. Like I was talking with someone the other time. But they don't sell security to you. They only tell you that our network is fast. But they don't tell you that our network is secure. But they promise you that what our network is fast. Because imagine I'm in that kind of estate. That means I have access to almost everybody. If I do a scanning, I have access to almost everybody. So if there's a problem, say before they come and see what the problem is, and the probability that from 10 p.m. to 4 a.m. in the morning, everybody will be on that network. So imagine leaving someone like me, that kind of estate for a whole year. What do you think will happen? Exactly. Okay, let's look at SOC operational center, how they look like. Security operational center. So some of you start having idea of where you want to work and also the kind of career path you want to do. So this is how SOC looks like, can you see? So where you also have dashboards. So you have 3 different kind of dashboards, but it's not compulsory for you now. We have tactical, we have operational, we have strategic. These are the, you have the tactical, you have the operational, and we have the strategic dashboard. So you can see that some of you have seen these things before. So these are SOC looks like. So based on those logs, we can have the correlation. That because it's thousands of logs. Some people generate up to 1 million logs in a day, depending on the kind of traffic your industry is having. But how do I correlate all this information? And that's why I think that AI or ML can also complement. So some of you can use Splunk, can use Wazoo. So you can have a correlation to be able to make case studies. So if someone is trying to do a brute force based on the log, if someone trying to do an SQL injection, and so on and so forth. So this is how a SOC look like. And some of the time, it cannot even, some people don't have this kind of resources, right? It might just be in your system or 2 or 3 more screens like that to monitor traffic. But SOC is actually 24/7 for most organizations. It's 24/7 job. But using that you have shift. SOC is one of the jobs that you work on shift. Is that? Yes, you work on shift. So also it provides tracking suspicious end user behavior, and it provides security information management and security event management. This is where we talk about real-time monitoring, correlation of events, notification, and console views. So this is it. So you have data collection, you have correlation and data aggregation, and we have outputs where you have forensic analysis, real-time alerting. So once you miss a case study, once you meet a particular criteria, I can say that, okay, if we see 5 logs that try to be from a brute force, and someone is trying to do a password 5 times, and I look at the timing, okay, I say, okay, this means that what? It is a brute force attack. Just like the example I gave before, I can say that, okay, you look at the distance and this location. OPay also do something like this with the help of cloud, because cloud gives them this ability. OPay is a cloud, is a platform as they use platform as a service. So, example, they use this machine learning to also know where you do transfer. So that means that if you do a transaction in a location for the first time, majorly it might be very small amount, but you notice that they told me to do authentication again. Sometimes OPay will just log you out. As some of you explained that, but if you go to a new location, this is that normally OPay will just log you out naturally. And if you are trying to do transaction of maybe over 50,000, which normally they don't require for authentication, but see that and you are doing transaction of 50,000 and you are telling to do a face recognition, it's because you are in that location, you are making that transaction the first time, it's not a regular location. So we can make studies or real-time alerting with same tools. Example, Splunk, we have Alien Boats, you have ELK, and so on and so forth like that. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, let's stop here for today. Please, does anybody have any question? I know it's a lot, which is fine. So by next week, of course, we're going to ethical hacking to complement this. Ethical hacking essential. We'll be doing a lot of practical. You see, as we have said, based on these flaws, right? You see how they have access to them. So please, anybody with any question? You have any question for me? Okay, since there are no questions, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your time, and I will hand you over to Samuel, and I'll see you next week. Whatever you give to security is what it gives back to you. Every day is for the thief, but one day is for the owner. That talks about that the thief is 99 times smarter than the owner. That's what it means. Why you must need to think like one.